Beneath the shadow of the great tree called Konoha, one clan has lived under suspicion for generations. Uchiha. Blood and fire. Loyal, yet never submissive. When trust is betrayed. When justice becomes nothing but empty words. Separation. Not born of hatred, but because the path is no longer shared. The Sharingan sees through every lie. The will of Uchiha does not bow to the Hokage. This is a story of choice, and the price paid for freedom. I am Uchiha, the division of Konoha. When a clan steps out of the shadows, Shisui, you. At this moment, Uchiha Yuru feigned a look of astonishment, and after seemingly noticing the other party's shock and confusion, immediately smiled and shook his head, saying, Shisui. I was shocked at first too, but later I didn't think so anymore. Brother, what do you mean by that? At this moment, Shisui clearly frowned in confusion. After all, human test subjects were strictly forbidden in the shinobi world. Uchiha Yuru smiled, shook his head, and sighed, as if to say, Shisui, you're just an elite ninja from the clan, so you naturally understand the complexities of clan life. I, on the other hand, don't know, but during my time with Orochimaru, I clearly passed his tests, and I'm not surprised by some things I've seen. Does the second Hokage know about this? Upon hearing this, Uchiha Shisui frowned, then nodded slightly. Meanwhile, Uchiha Yoruichi cautiously scanned the surroundings, confirming no one was around before whispering, Orochimaru, the teacher in charge of the village's secret research mission, is conducting the unfinished human body experiment of the second Hokage. Furthermore, in the village, the first person in charge of the human body experiment was the second Hokage, followed by root leader Shimura Danzu, and currently, Orochimaru is the teacher. At this moment, Uchiha Shisui was terrified. He naturally understood that there was some darkness within the village. After all, the shinobi world had both clarity and darkness. But he never imagined that the village, with its loudly proclaimed prohibition slogans, would secretly continue to operate. Judging by the situation, it seemed the Hokage, the second Hokage, was still leading the charge. Seeing Shisui's terrified expression, Uchiha Yuru muttered to himself, I didn't lie, this is all true. As for what you think, that's your business. Don't just talk about Konoha. Other villages have them too. They're just keeping them secret. I'll tell you a piece of information. At this point, Uchiha Nightfall's expression became even more serious, and he said in a low voice, the experiments with wood-release ninjas that were once forbidden in the village haven't stopped, and some have even succeeded. What? It was clear that Uchiha Shisui, being a descendant of the Uchiha clan, naturally understood some of the clan's secrets due to his superior status within the clan. His eyes widened in surprise. He had heard about the extremely tragic human experiment involving the wood release technique, and he truly hadn't expected the village to have been secretly carrying it out all along, let alone succeed. Seeing Shisui's terrified expression, Uchiha Yuru gently shook his head and sighed, saying Teacher Orochimaru also witnessed to many tragedies. So these human body experiments were all conducted using enemy ninjas. And Root Danzo, well, let's not talk about it. If I did, I'm afraid you wouldn't be able to accept it. After all, the human body experiments were secretly planned by the second Hokage, and were completed under the leadership of the third Hokage as part of the wood release ninja plan. His words weren't a lie. Wasn't the wood release ninja technique perfected during the reign of the third Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen? As for the third Hokage not knowing about it, who's to blame? Only your old friend for keeping it a secret. But to say you didn't know about this kind of secret research is nonsense. Don't you know what's under your eyelids? However, Shisui, after a brief moment of shock, quickly calmed down. The human body was the subject of the experiment. The wood release plan was completed under the leadership of the third Hokage, and even Yuru-san didn't want to mention it, fearing that the success of this plan would be extremely disastrous. Looking at Uchiha Shisui's self-proclaimed truth, Uchiha Yuru muttered to himself, what I said is all true. As for what you think, that's your own business. Anyway, I don't believe that after knowing some of the village's dark secrets, you can still turn around and blindly worship the third Hokage. In the original story, Shisui's blind trust likely stemmed from a period of panic and unease following the Uchiha's downfall, a time when Orochimaru betrayed and fled, and the subsequent events of the Nine Tails Rebellion. Under these circumstances, Shisui, who carried the burden of his clan, and the third Hokage, who was extremely skilled at winning people's hearts, naturally placed their hopes on the third Hokage. This is what led to some tragedies. Hope shouldn't be placed on others. It's only right that hope should be entrusted to oneself. This time, his appearance was very clear. The Uchiha had already aligned themselves with Orochimaru. At this point in time, Orochimaru was an extremely attractive character, a sure bet for the future fifth Hokage. How could the Uchiha's hopes not rest on Orochimaru, this future fifth Hokage? Firstly, Uchiha Shisui would naturally hope to entrust his fate to Orochimaru, and like in the original story, he has a companion, Uchiha Yoru, instead of being alone. Under these circumstances, a sense of dependence would develop. When Orochimaru betrayed and fled, and the third Hokage, Shisui, didn't have such a rosy future in his mind, Uchiha Yoru couldn't help but chuckle to himself. This time, he wanted to see how the unyielding third Hokage and Danzo would react when faced with the formidable Uchiha clan. That's right. There's also that damned Itachi, but it doesn't matter. According to his plan, before Orochimaru betrays and flees, he'll first take up the clan and send Itachi to the front lines. Naturally, with his help, this lost bastard will find his true purpose in life. Good, I will secretly lead an elite squad to capture the target. This time, when Shisui heard about this overthrowing secret, although he was shocked, he felt more helpless. The village had been secretly working on this for so long and had even completed the wood release plan. What could he, a mere Jonin, say? Moreover, the second and third Hokage were leading these human experiments. What nonsense could he possibly have? He could only hold his nose and accept it. But Shisui didn't realize that the lofty and glorious image of the Hokage in his mind wasn't as dazzling as he thought. Seeing Shisui silently agree to capture the target's human body, Uchiha Yoru immediately smiled and nodded, saying, "Good, I'll go then too." "You?" With a skeptical look in his eyes, Uchiha Yoru chuckled and shrugged, saying, "Teacher Orochimaru taught me the summoning beast precisely to better complete the mission. Especially since this is a top-secret mission, and one that will see me as the future fifth Hokage." Upon hearing those words, Shisui was immediately stunned, followed by a forced smile on his face. He inwardly reassured himself, it's all right, after all, they're all enemy ninjas. Even if they don't become test subjects, they can't escape death. They're all doing it for their clan, for their village. Uchiha Yoru was also silently deep in thought. Orochimaru was still very cunning. This was clearly a way of drawing him in and confirming his intentions. He was given a mission so large that only the elite Uchiha could complete it. The Uchiha only needed to join Orochimaru's ship, and naturally, the two sides would trust and cooperate. The fact that he was given a summoning beast was clearly to complete the mission, so he wouldn't have to worry about being secretly discovered by someone with ulterior motives. After all, those snakes in Ryuchi Cape could swallow Genin and create mobile fortresses. How secretive. Thinking this, Uchiha Yoru secretly warned himself to be careful. Orochimaru wasn't just a late-stage rogue ninja who had become completely obsessed with immortality and the Sharingan. Now he was the fifth Hokage's top candidate. Which political maneuvering was clean, and which was simple? Well, it seems that from now on, when he passes through the family's financial hands, he needs to be even more careful. Fortunately, the time wasn't long, and fortunately, he knew the future. Otherwise, if the profits he made from price differences and commissions were to spill over, there would truly be no turning back. For a moment, Uchiha Yoru muttered to himself, "Be careful. If Orochimaru betrays us and runs away, everything will become a blank slate, and all the danger will naturally be eliminated. I just need to be careful during this time." Half a month later, Konoha's reinforcements arrived, further stabilizing the border situation. Only a few small ninja nations still harbored ambitions of instigating conflict between the two great nations, and thus continued to test their provocations and even resort to hiring mercenaries. Deep within the forest, in a mysterious, gloomy underground cavern, agonizing screams echoed, but were isolated by a protective barrier, preventing even a single sound from reaching the outside. Above ground, lush green trees provided shade. Everywhere was dense forest and piles of dry grass, and birds chirped joyfully. But beneath the earth lay a terrifying research facility for the human body. The air was blocked by a barrier, which is why this place appeared unusually calm, without a single trace remaining. Haha, Night Lord, I didn't expect you to be so skilled in medical ninjutsu. Orochimaru, with a hoarse, forced smile, said, Elder Shura said that ninjas should never reveal their trump cards, but to gain the trust of Master Orochimaru, this is necessary. Beside him, Uchiha Yoru, wearily wiping the sweat from his forehead, smiled and said, Elder Shura said that ninjas should never reveal their trump cards, but to gain Master Orochimaru's trust. This is inevitable. Looking at Uchiha Yoru's youthful face, Orochimaru immediately displayed his characteristic cheerful smile, his tongue involuntarily licking his lips. Dequan has been at the front lines for 3 months, and at 15 years old, he can master the rank medical ninjutsu healing palm technique. That's truly extraordinary. Upon hearing this, Uchiha Yoruichi was stunned, then smiled and nodded. That's right, the Ninetales night is the protagonist's birthday, and Naruto's birthday is on October 10th. 3 months have passed, and it's already the 2nd year. Naturally, he's a year older, 15 years old. Orochimaru nodded in satisfaction. The disciple the Uchiha clan had sent was indeed to his liking, and he had even come to understand him better. In Orochimaru's perception, the Uchiha clan, being involved with him on this ship, naturally had to be in agreement. This research on the human body naturally required medical ninjas, and there weren't many medical ninjas who could master the immortal palm technique, especially the Uchiha clan, known for their fighting prowess. First, they threw out a wood-release ninja as bait, then they offered financial assistance, and finally, they even provided this free helper. It's undeniable that the Uchiha clan showed great sincerity. But Orochimaru didn't know that all of this was the masterpiece of his two-headed disciple, who had devoured it all right before his eyes. Relying on his prophetic advantage, Orochimaru would certainly make good use of it, and his clan would undoubtedly fantasize about him sacrificing his good looks to get closer to Mitarashi Anko. Learning some secrets, such as Orochimaru secretly carrying out years of research on Konoha, and how the Ninetales caused turmoil in Konoha, breaking the financial chain. Naturally, the Uchiha clan, due to their desire to forge a relationship with Orochimaru and seek investment, ended up in this current situation, with neither side fully understanding the situation. Would it be exposed? Uchiha Yoru couldn't help but chuckle. There wouldn't be time for it to be exposed. After all, Orochimaru would betray them and flee, not to mention the more important point, the current situation of the Uchiha clan. Right now, they wished these things could be kept secret, and they could gradually mend relations after Orochimaru rose to power. If we knew this at this time, wouldn't we prevent someone with ulterior motives from taking advantage of the situation? Especially Danzo. Both sides adopted a cautious, subdued attitude, naturally refraining from bringing up this foolish issue again, since the cooperation agreement had already been reached. The Uchiha needed the trust of Orochimaru, the future Hokage, and Orochimaru needed financial support, a perfect match. Teacher Orochimaru, it seems we don't have enough test subjects. Uchiha Yoru wearily rubbed his eyebrows. This human experiment really required talent. He had relied on spending money to directly accumulate his medical ninjutsu experience to the level of a special jonin, but he could still only become an obedient assistant. After all, this thing really did depend on talent. I know how you want me to do it, but you're making me do it alone, and that's not just a little bit of a failure. Orochimaru looked at the research room, where various jars contained human bodies, even organs, and different kinds of basilisk, and a smile appeared on his face. Haha, this time the test subject will probably cause trouble for the elite Uchiha squad of the Night Army. This time, things need to be different. Orochimaru, his face beaming with excitement, said in a hoarse laugh, 100 male children. Any child under 5 years old will do, preferably descendants of ninjas. Upon hearing this, Uchiha Yoru immediately showed a surprised expression, looking at Orochimaru. Suddenly, as if remembering something, Orochimaru, without concealing anything, directly smiled and nodded, saying, just as you think, Night Lord. The Uchiha information is very useful. There is indeed a wood-release ninja currently at route. This firstly proves that the direction of the experiment is correct, so this time I need more test subjects. Upon hearing this, Uchiha Yoru subtly furrowed his brow, then nodded and said, Teacher, this time the test subject is a bit troublesome. After all, it's a young ninja, so it will take some time. For someone of value, Orochimaru is extremely tolerant. His hoarse, smiling demeanor means he won't rush you. After all, intelligent people know how to talk things out, and no one will intentionally prolong the conversation. Yes, Lord Knight, your clan leader seems to have brought his eldest son to the front lines this time, along with your elite Uchiha squad. Orochimaru, with a hoarse voice and a forced smile, glanced over. Uchiha Yoru, upon hearing this, immediately showed a troubled expression, shrugged, and said, "There's no way around it. The clan head's eldest son is a genius, so naturally he wants to become a disciple of a teacher." At this moment, Orochimaru narrowed his eyes, a smile appearing on his face, but he said nothing more. Uchiha Yoru, understanding implicitly, smiled and nodded. "Teacher Orochimaru, rest assured, I will return now and won't let anyone disturb you." Now that Orochimaru isn't obsessed with the Sharingan, he naturally doesn't want to be a babysitter. After all, the other person is pursuing immortality, and the fact that he has achieved this special honor is due to his own efforts. First, he used wood-release jutsu to set up a cover line, then he used financial resources to pave the way and become a partner. And finally, he revealed his hidden medical ninjutsu abilities to become Orochimaru's assistant. Orochimaru narrowed his eyes as he examined the data analysis report, then shook his head in disappointment and sighed, saying, "It seems that the side effects of animal-human fusion cannot be minimized." This research facility was primarily focused on the combination of animal and human anatomy. Ultimately, some animals still possessed longevity genes, and after utter disappointment, Orochimaru abandoned this research and shifted his focus to other areas. However, the ultimate goal remains very simple: longevity. How to prolong life. Next to Uchiha Yoru, who, despite not possessing great talent, still had a wealth of knowledge from his previous life, couldn't help but smile and nod, saying, "Teacher Orochimaru, perhaps we could try summoning a spirit beast." Spirit beasts. Upon hearing this, Orochimaru showed a thoughtful expression, while Uchiha Yoru smiled and nodded, saying, "Although I don't understand these things, I know that the biggest difference between animals and humans is intelligence. However, summoning beasts are different. Compared to humans, apart from the difference in size, their intelligence is almost equal." It must be said that in this aspect of creativity, Uchiha Yoru was the most anticipated by Orochimaru, who couldn't help but smile and nod, saying, "Not bad. Summoning beasts can be tested, but summoning beasts with intelligence equal to that of a human are too rare." Even so, Orochimaru's pair of sinister, snake-like yellow eyes still revealed a greedy curiosity, though sparse, and this was precisely what attracted him. Konoha border. On the way back, Uchiha Yoru saw the clan head, Uchiha Fugaku. This time, the clan head had come with two reasons. Firstly, to bring his eldest son, who had gone through the war, and secondly, to bring the most elite members of his clan. In the gloomy atmosphere of the military tent, Uchiha Fugaku and Uchiha Yoru sat facing each other, kneeling. The rules of etiquette and hierarchy were practically ingrained in the very fabric of Neon Nation. Etiquette and customs are often meticulously observed, especially within wealthy families where even the slightest mistake is unacceptable. Kneeling involves placing both knees on the floor, with the buttocks resting on the heels, then spreading the legs apart, heels pointing downwards, and the buttocks moving. Hands are placed on the knees or thighs, and the back is straight. Men should slightly open their knees, while women should squat with their knees together. To put it bluntly, it's what's called squatting. Chief. As the candlelight dimmed, Uchiha Yoru deliberately feigned a weary, exhausted expression on her face. Seeing this, Uchiha Fugaku couldn't help but frown, and said in a low voice, "Yoru, have you made any progress?" In just 3 short months, the Uchiha clan had invested a considerable amount of money. While things were going well, especially with Orochimaru taking Uchiha Yoru as his disciple, which outwardly seemed to be moving in a certain direction, there hadn't been any further developments recently. He couldn't help but wonder what the future Hokage was thinking. Seeing Fugaku's serious expression, Uchiha Yoru let out a deep sigh. Although Professor Orochimaru appears to be the commander-in-chief of the front lines, he is secretly carrying out a secret human experimentation research mission. This is practically a top-secret mission, and more importantly, seeing Uchiha Yoru's hesitant expression, Uchiha Fugaku couldn't help but say in a low voice, "Rest assured, this time the clan has no intention of interfering in this top-secret village mission. You know that, and besides, only you, the elder, and Shisui know about it." Similarly, this is top secret within the clan. To be honest, the Uchiha clan currently have no interest in managing your top secret missions. Their greatest concern is the hope of the Uchiha clan returning to the center of power in Konoha. Seeing the clan head's expression, Uchiha Yoru hesitated for a moment, then sighed deeply and angrily said, "Clan head, according to the clues revealed by teacher Orochimaru, it seems that the village's high-ranking officials are extremely wary of the Uchiha clan, especially root leader Danzo and the third Hokage." Teacher Orochimaru said that, fearing a second Nine-Tails rebellion, the third Hokage is now openly trying to appease the Uchiha clan, while Danzo is secretly distancing himself from them. Furthermore, to prevent the Sharingan from controlling the Nine-Tails again, the village has secretly planned to restart the wood release ninja program. What? Uchiha Fugaku was shocked upon hearing these words, and a hint of anger appeared on his eyebrows. Damn it! They still don't trust the Uchiha clan. Even now, they're still thinking about guarding against them. The wood release plan was to guard against the Uchiha clan, because everyone knew that the strongest ability to counter Biju was the Sharingan and wood release. And although the Sharingan was powerful, it was consistently countered by wood release. It's quite clear that the village restarted its wood release research precisely to counter and defend against the Uchiha. Seeing Uchiha Fugaku's rage, Uchiha Nightheart secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Although this was all his own doing, his intentions were good. It was all for the sake of the clan. Recently, because I became a disciple of teacher Orochimaru, it seems that the village's high-ranking officials have put a lot of pressure and warnings on teacher Orochimaru, and even his research funding has weakened again. Upon hearing this, Uchiha Fugaku nodded solemnly. He believed this point he couldn't see through the third Hokage's thoughts, but Danzo would absolutely do it. What Danzo enjoyed most was coercing people, especially now that someone in the Uchiha clan had joined Orochimaru's tutelage. Under these circumstances, how could he possibly like it? He would definitely try to trip Orochimaru up. After thinking this over, Uchiha Fugaku said in a low voice, "Go back and tell Lord Orochimaru that he can rest assured about the finances. The Uchiha clan is willing to triple the funding." Upon hearing about the triple payout, Uchiha Nightheart was instantly filled with excitement. He had taken such a huge risk to win both sides. Wasn't it precisely for this? Clan leader, rest assured, teacher Orochimaru said he trusts the Uchiha clan. Speaking from the bottom of his heart, Uchiha Yoru felt not the slightest shame or embarrassment. On the contrary, he displayed a calm demeanor. All of this was for the sake of saving his clan, and in the end, it would only benefit the village unnecessarily. It was better to sacrifice himself now. There's an old saying that goes, "The person is gone, but the money remains." Isn't that the greatest tragedy? Even more importantly, this concerns the future of the Uchiha clan. Having achieved what he wanted to know about the situation, Uchiha Fugaku immediately revealed a satisfied smile. This was a good start. All he had to do was wait for Orochimaru to take power. "Yoru, you've done this so the whole clan will remember." This time, all the elite members of the clan who have joined the front lines are willing to obey Lord Orochimaru's command. And Iron Fire is also here. If you have any problems later, remember to secretly contact Iron Fire and Shisui. Uchiha Iron Flame. It could be said that among the elite Jonin clans, what's even more important is that he seems to be related to the clan head. After all, both of them have a square-shaped face. With the image of the fiery Uchiha appearing in his mind, Uchiha Yoru immediately showed a respectful expression, nodding solemnly and saying, "Clan head, rest assured, for the sake of the clan." After saying this, Uchiha Night God's expression became serious, and he then lowered his voice and said, "Clan head, according to what teacher Orochimaru said, it seems that root leader Danzo is very dissatisfied with the Uchiha, Hyuga, and teacher Orochimaru getting too close, and it seems he's secretly plotting something." Upon hearing this, Fugaku immediately snorted coldly. "Mouse that likes to hide in the shadows will always be like that." There were quite a few Konoha clans close to Orochimaru's, with the Hyuga and Uchiha clans being the most prominent. After all, Orochimaru was from a commoner background, and the false support behind him was the result of years of hard work. However, a year before the fourth Hokage was not elected, many of his former clans began to gradually distance themselves. Yet, less than a year later, no one expected this to happen, and no one imagined that the fourth Hokage would be a man who died prematurely. Yes, this time I brought the elite members of my clan, and we plan to return in a few days. As for Itachi, I'll have to trouble you and Shisui to properly train him tonight. Yes, clan head, rest assured. Upon hearing these words, Uchiha Yoro immediately patted his chest solemnly, his eyes filled with determination. This time, he wasn't just trying to sway the tribal chief. He was being sincere and genuine. How old is Itachi now? 5 years old? No. He was 5 last year during the Ninetales Rebellion, so he's 6 this year. He clearly remembered that, according to the original Uchiha Itachi's profile, he had witnessed a brutal battlefield at the age of 4, experienced the Ninetales Rebellion at the age of 5, and only entered ninja school at the age of 6. At this point, Itachi hadn't yet gone to school and hadn't become a fanatical follower of the Will of Fire. At this young age, Itachi was likely still in a confused stage, making it the perfect opportunity to properly guide him, at the very least, towards the correct values. Uchiha Fugaku, seeing how much effort his clan member Uchiha Yoru had put into serving the clan, showed a different expression of emotion. Yoru, rest assured, the clan will not mistreat you. This time, success is our priority, and even if it doesn't, you're here for us. It's clear that, whether as a father or clan head, Uchiha Fugaku still hoped his eldest son would become a disciple of the future Hokage. Even if it fails, isn't this also a reflection of the future elites of the clan, such as himself and Shisui? At this moment, Uchiha Neidhart muttered to himself, it's truly impossible to underestimate anyone. This clan head is really quite calculating. No matter what, it's not a loss. Konoha is a small border town. Beneath the veil of Yoru, inside a simple house, only 3 ordinary warriors could be seen, lost in a haze of smoke. With a hissing sound, the wooden door was pushed open, revealing 2 figures, one large and one small. The 2 leading figures, in particular, had bright red eye sockets. The shorter one clearly had a 3-tamo Sharingan, while the taller one, who seemed to be the leader, had a 1-tamo Sharingan. This is a very strange phenomenon. Normally, it's said that only the powerful are the leaders, but this time it's different. Uchiha Shisui, ever observant, directly raised his hand and swung out 3 senbon, instantly stabbing them into the pressure points of the necks of the 3 unconscious samurai, causing them to fall into a deep coma. Similarly, if anyone was feigning sleep, they could still be detected. Having finished all of this, Uchiha Shisui carefully observed the surroundings, especially his 3-tamo Sharingan, staring intently at the children whose hands were tied together with grass ropes. One after another, about 8 of them. Yes, boss, these 3 are brokers. According to intelligence, these 8 children were recruited by them to prepare for trading in the Iron Kingdom. Upon hearing Uchiha Shisui's report, Uchiha Yoru nodded gently, while Uchiha Itachi, who had followed him, displayed a bewildered and helpless expression. At this time, Uchiha Itachi was only 6 years old and hadn't yet attended ninja school. Although he had witnessed the brutality of war when he was 4, he was even more bewildered now. At this moment, Uchiha Itachi looked at the scene before him, especially the child tied up like livestock with grass ropes, and hesitated even more. Shisui, seeing this, couldn't help but sigh softly, lowering his head and saying in a low voice, "They are all orphans trafficked from the common people or found in captivity. They all share one characteristic. They possess a chakra extraction ability, which is why they are valued by the powerful nations. Apart from the 5 great nations, there are a few other powerful nations and the remaining smaller countries, in order to ensure the number of ninjas, need to buy some children from the common people. Those who can permanently extract human chakra are few and far between, especially in war-torn, small countries, where they naturally need to find new blood to join, and children are the best choice." After hearing Shisui's explanation, Uchiha Yoru scoffed. "Shisui Itachi isn't an ordinary child. You'd better be honest. What do you mean except for the 5 great nations? You should be saying the 5 great nations are the ones with the greatest need." With the danger averted, Uchiha Yoru immediately squatted in front of the fire, taking out the 3 samurai's rations from the hot pan and roasting them. Beside him, Shisui shook his head helplessly, then stepped forward and stroked young Itachi's head, sighing, "Itachi, this world is cruel." However, after doing everything well, Uchiha Yoru looked at these children. His eyes rolled, and then he immediately began forming hand seals in front of Uchiha Itachi. Pig, dog, rooster, monkey, void. Kuchioshi no Jutsu. In the blink of an eye, a flash of white smoke appeared, revealing a brown serpent. Looking at the summoning beast, Uchiha Yoru bowed his head and pointed to the children in the distance, his voice hoarse as he said, "The children are all over there. Remember to bring these 8 children to teacher Orochimaru." Seemingly seeing the snake in his greedy eyes, Uchiha Yoru snorted coldly, his whole body radiating killing intent, as he said in a chilling voice, "If you dare to sneak a bite, I'll roast you alive. You know the consequences." With a menacing, threatening voice, the thick, massive serpent recoiled in fear for a moment, then reluctantly slowly slithered away towards the children. Uchiha Itachi, witnessing this scene, stared in disbelief, finally voicing his biggest question. "Brother Shisui, why is this mission to find a child with chakra abilities?" At this time, Itachi was still full of confusion, especially as a child filled with uncertainty about the future. It was precisely because of this uncertainty that he went to ninja school at this age, where he was directly instilled with the so-called will of fire, filling in the void of this confused and incomplete mind. Uchiha Yoru naturally noticed Itachi's confusion, and he understood even more deeply in his heart that, as the eldest son of the Uchiha clan head, he had indeed been brainwashed into being part of the Konoha faction. Only at the Ninja Academy, and before attending the Ninja Academy, it was absolutely impossible for Uchiha Itachi, with his status, to be casually approached by outsiders, let alone be swayed. It's undeniable that, in this respect, the Uchiha clan was too careless, or perhaps the Hokage's methods were too sophisticated, completely blind to the truth. The Uchiha clan only focused on keeping an eye on the remaining Uchiha children, and clan head Fugaku felt reassured, resulting in a lapse in judgment regarding Uchiha Itachi. No one would have imagined that the clan head's eldest son would betray them. After mentally analyzing the situation once more, Uchiha Yoru immediately decided that he must seize this opportune moment to leave a lasting impression on this young man, absolutely preventing Itachi from becoming the scoundrel he was in the original story. All that could be seen was Uchiha Yoru staring at the fire, while the only sound in the room was the large snake opening its greedy mouth and slowly swallowing the children, a nauseating sound. Shisui Itachi is no ordinary child. At the age of 4, he was brought to the battlefield by the clan head and experienced the brutality of war. He is also an Uchiha genius. First, there was a round of praise, also to help the young Uchiha Itachi relax. After all, even though he was mature for his age, he was essentially just a 6-year-old child. As expected, upon seeing Uchiha Itachi approaching with a frown and a childish, grown-up demeanor, Uchiha Yoru's lips slowly curved into a smile, but a mocking grin appeared on his face. These children's futures are already sealed. They will either become tools of another power or fall down this path. Don't think that the so-called neutral iron country will bring any good, and don't think that the 5 great ninja villages will be a haven of sunshine. Reality is just that cruel and cold. Yes, big brother. Shisui, looking worried, spoke up, seemingly wanting to say that Uchiha Itachi was still too young, and perhaps it was a bit too early to be saying these things. Seeing this scene, Uchiha Yoru glared fiercely at Shisui, lamenting his lack of progress. "It was because of people like you, who worried about a young child, that you let him experience the battlefield at the age of 4. After personally witnessing the brutality of the battlefield, you failed to instill the correct values in this child. You only taught him half-heartedly. No wonder he turned out to be such a scoundrel." In the original story, young Uchiha Itachi even showed a disregard for his own life. It's evident that his early experiences with war, coupled with a lack of self-awareness and values, led to a void in Itachi's psyche, allowing the Hokage's faction to exploit it. In short, he deserved it. These children's future is destined for cruelty. But similarly, if cruelty isn't directed at other nations, then this cruelty will fall upon Konoha, the land of fire. Seeing Uchiha Itachi's questioning gaze, Uchiha Yoru revealed a mocking smile. "Your calm demeanor truly befits a young man who has been on the battlefield, and even more so, worthy of being the clan head's eldest son." After another round of encouragement, Uchiha Yoru directly changed the subject, looking at Uchiha Shisui and shaking his head, saying, "When you return this time, you should tell Itachi about the customs and traditions of various countries. There are some things he wants to enjoy, and naturally, he must also pay a price for them. As the eldest son of the Uchiha clan head, if you want to enjoy all this glory, you must also shoulder some important responsibilities." The bonfire crackled and popped, and opposite it, the giant snake had swallowed all 8 children whole. Its already thick body had become even thicker, segment by segment, which seemed somewhat comical. After Kuchioshi finished smoking a cigarette, the large snake disappeared, and nothing unexpected happened, which was the best outcome. Itachi, you're 6 years old this year. Shouldn't you be going to ninja school? Changing the subject, Uchiha Yoro casually chuckled and asked, as if it were the same as asking someone their ranking in a competition this year. Having received the clan's teachings, Uchiha Itachi, despite being only 6 years old, was still very polite. Although his heart was filled with countless doubts, he still politely nodded and said, last year, due to the clan's special training, I will be attending the ninja school in the village this year. But the school year will start in March. Having just answered, Uchiha Itachi showed a hesitant expression. He had too many doubts in his heart, and his elder brother Shisui seemed to treat him like a child. Therefore, his gaze shifted to this clan member whom even his father held in high regard. Why do you want these children for this mission? Finally, Uchiha Itachi voiced his doubts, and upon hearing this, Uchiha Yoro chuckled self-deprecatingly. Why not? If we don't find a child from outside, there will naturally be people in the village who want to kidnap children from the land of fire or even Konoha. Family versus outsiders. If it were you, how would you choose? This question momentarily stunned Uchiha Itachi, who hesitated for a moment before softly saying, naturally, it's about protecting my own people. Haha, not bad. Since we didn't get many people in the village to lay a hand on our own family, naturally we want to take action against outsiders. At this moment, Uchiha Shisui seemed about to offer some advice, but Uchiha Yoro's face showed a serious expression. And he said in a low voice, Shisui Itachi is the clan head's eldest son. He carries the glory of the Uchiha clan on his shoulders. From the moment he was born and enjoyed the honor and material comforts that came with being the clan head's son. He was different from other children. From the moment he was born, he had to bear the burden of establishing the clan. Haha, Shisui, don't talk about children like that. Hada Kakashi graduated as a Chunin at 5 and a Chunin at 6. A Chunin already wants to lead a squad in battle. Do you think the Uchiha clan is inferior to the Hada clan? Upon hearing the question again, Uchiha Shisui immediately gave a wry smile, shook his head, and sighed, saying, brother, that's not what I meant. After saying that, and seeing Uchiha Itachi's calm expression, Shisui couldn't help but sigh and shake his head, saying, perhaps so, but Itachi hasn't even been to the ninja academy, let alone become a ninja. Seeing Shisui still protecting Uchiha Itachi, Uchiha Yoro chuckled, secretly cursing them for being so foolish. If he hadn't taught these two a lesson sooner, one would have run away to commit suicide, and the other would have been a complete bastard. At that point, no one would have given him a chance to regret it. It's also because Itachi wants to return to the Ninja Academy to study, so there are some things he won't learn there, which is why we want to teach him a little bit early. With a wave of his hand, he gestured for Uchiha Itachi to sit in front of the fire. Uchiha Itachi respectfully squatted down beside him, while Shisui, with a wry smile, shook his head and sat down as well, but remained on guard. Looking at the innocent, bewildered eyes of young Uchiha Itachi, Uchiha Yoro didn't directly laugh or shake his head, saying, Itachi, you are fortunate, because you are the son of the clan head. From the moment you were born, you obtained things that countless generations have strived for but could never achieve. But similarly, you must also bear the burden of protecting the clan. There's something related to a top-secret mission that can't be revealed, but as the clan leader's son, your identity is somewhat dark, and you have to face it. So I'll tell you, in this world, wherever there's light, there is darkness. In fact, darkness itself lies beneath the light. Seeing the bewildered look on Uchiha Itachi's face, Uchiha Yoro showed no sign of discouragement. Instead, he smiled and nodded. He didn't want to rush things. He wanted to take it slowly, without rushing. The Ninetales rampage had just passed, and Uchiha Shisui wasn't yet the hopeless Shisui of the body flicker technique. Uchiha Itachi was still just a young boy. At this point, if he still couldn't bring these two back into line, he might as well find a block of tofu and smash them to death. Many people who transmigrate into the Uchiha clan train desperately and then change the night of their clan's annihilation, almost entirely relying on their superhuman strength. Clearly, the best approach is to first make these two into his own family, a good man makes 3 helpers. The shinobi world has a clear order prohibiting human body experimentation, and that has always been the case. It's not just Konoha, the 5 great nations and some other ninja villages also have it. As for some smaller ninja villages, it's not that they don't want to, but rather that they lack the capability. The human body for the experiment. Upon hearing this term, Uchiha Itachi couldn't help but show a look of astonishment. Uchiha Yoru, even more so, saw the other's expression change for the first time. Itachi secretly recalled the 8 children from earlier. Could it be that the clan had been conducting human body experiments all along? Uchiha Yoru naturally didn't know what Itachi was thinking, but that didn't matter. What he wanted now was to smear Itachi with an indelible stain while it was still a blank slate regarding the Hokage position. In the village, there have been people secretly carrying out experiments, and as you know, after the Ninetales night, the clan was isolated and to seek outside help. They could only bet on teacher Orochimaru. Speaking of Orochimaru, Uchiha Yoru feigned an excited and adoring expression, his face showing even more determination. Itachi, you are still young and cannot yet understand the current predicament of our clan, but I can tell you that Orochimaru-sensei's current prestige will not last long before he becomes the 5th Hokage. At that time, our clan will surely return to the center of power in Konoha and once again gain the trust of all of Konoha. At this moment, Uchiha Yoru was completely a fanatical individual, placing his hopes for the future on the future 5th Hokage. The best way to tarnish someone's reputation wasn't through direct insults, but by encouraging another person, thereby raising a banner and, in a subtle way, highlighting the ugliness of others. Seeing this scene, Shisui also showed a determined expression, nodding solemnly and saying, "Yes, big brother, rest assured, after Lord Orochimaru becomes the 5th Hokage, the clan will definitely return to Konoha once again." He firmly believed in this one point. At this moment, Shisui silently and solemnly declared, while Uchiha Itachi, hearing such words for the first time, instantly saw the glorious image of the future 5th Hokage Orochimaru, whom he had never met before, appear in his mind. The clan placed all their hopes on the future of the 5th Hokage, Orochimaru, and with the clan, my father, and even Shisui, my elder brother, all believing it must be the right thing to do. In an instant, Uchiha Itachi understood all of this, his bewildered eyes revealing a look of determination. Although he couldn't fully comprehend or grasp everything, he knew that the Hokage was a great person. If Orochimaru were to become the 5th Hokage, then he would undoubtedly be a great Hokage. Seeing Uchiha Itachi's resolute gaze, Uchiha Nightheart immediately muttered to himself, "Don't waver, you're someone who could instantly kill Orochimaru with a single glance. And you're also Itachi's nemesis. Don't end up becoming Orochimaru's loyal supporter." Uchiha Yoru wasn't some kind of brainwashing master, but he knew that the Uchiha clan needed hope right now. The 5th Hokage saw Orochimaru as that hope, and before that, he wanted to endlessly promote the idea of a good future Hokage in the eyes of Shisui and Itachi. After all, if I say a good Hokage, nobody can say otherwise, right? At the same time, using Orochimaru's iconic image to attack the remnants of the previous eras, this going too far. Going too far isn't a big deal. After all, there are still gems to be found in the future Hokage. This Hokage position is the hope, but what happens when this hope crumbles? Thinking of this, Uchiha Yoru's face broke into a smile. He didn't know what would happen, but one thing was certain, the glorious and sacred image of the Hokage would be tainted. At that point, he wanted to see how Konoha would still manipulate those Uchiha bastards. Half a month later, the elite Uchiha squad, who had secretly carried out their mission, returned one after another. The only difference was that this time, each person's expression was somewhat grim. After all, for someone from such a prestigious family to undertake a mission like searching for children with chakra-type constitutions is truly a bit too low class. Furthermore, this place was a highly confidential mission. Everyone was in seclusion, and luckily the number of people to find wasn't large, so it was quick. However, someone secretly discovered something. This type of mission seemed to be related to Lord Orochimaru. Ultimately, the child wouldn't be brought back, but would be gathered at some location later, and everything would be handed over to Shisui, who, after all, was the commander-in-chief. Shisui, the numbers are sufficient. Have the ninja clans return to their encampment and get some good rest. Uchiha Yoru looked at the completed mission and sighed inwardly. He was forced to drag the entire Uchiha into this mess. Otherwise, if Orochimaru truly betrayed them, he alone wouldn't be able to capture him, and would the Uchiha be able to protect him? That was hard to say. But this time, so many elite Uchiha were dragged into this mess. At that point, Konoha wouldn't be able to arrest them all just because of a mere suspicion. After all, the number of people this time is considerable, and each one is an elite. The Uchiha clan wouldn't agree to that. After all, they don't mind having a lot of debt. They can do whatever they want. Yes, boss, I'll go back to the camp first. With the mission accomplished after seemingly uncovering the crimes, Shisui secretly breathed a sigh of relief as he bid farewell to Uchiha Yoru. After all, he knew the fate of these children. Human experimentation. It sounded obvious. Upon encountering Uchiha Itachi, who was bewildered, it seemed as if he saw something different and couldn't help but look at Shisui and Knight. Yes, big brother, I'll take Itachi back to the clan leader's side. Go ahead. Uchiha Yoru casually chuckled and waved his hand, but when he saw a certain emotion in Itachi's eyes, he chuckled inwardly. The seed had been sown, and he didn't believe that Itachi, after he had opened the ugly side of Konoha's main door, would be so easily brainwashed. Moreover, he never mentioned how Konoha would crush them. Instead, he said they should trust Konoha, trust the future fifth Hokage, Lord Orochimaru, and that the ugly, evil side of them was just a few rotten people. TSK. Uchiha Yoru. A voice filled with anger rang out, and Uchiha Yoru turned his head to see Mitarashi Anko's eyes, brimming with rage, staring intently at him. Seeing this scene, Shisui also recoiled in fear, immediately praying that no one would notice, and then quickly took Itachi away from the place. Brother Shisui, what is this? At this point, the innocent young Uchiha Itachi couldn't understand such a scene, and Shisui felt even more uneasy. After all, he knew the whole story. His older brother had approached the girl only for the sake of the clan. If this were exposed, he would feel incredibly ashamed, and all he wanted now was to hide. Itachi, let's go back first. Shisui simply shook Itachi briefly before leading him towards the clan's encampment, while young Itachi frowned, pondering the situation that had just occurred to him. The clan seemed quite strange. From the other end of the image, upon seeing Anko being captured, Uchiha Yoru immediately put on a gentle, innocent smile and said, "Isn't this Anko? What's wrong with you?" Seeing Uchiha Yoru's defiant face, Mitarashi Anko immediately showed her displeasure, gritting her teeth in hatred, and coldly snorted, "Looks like there's something I need to remind you of. 200,000! Where's the promised 200,000? At this moment, Uchiha Yoru's face showed a look of realization. "So that's it. I thought, Anko, something was wrong with you. Let's go. We'll talk about it properly when we get back." At this moment, Uchiha Nightheart, with his seemingly carefree and smiling face, was secretly lamenting his misfortune. 200,000! What method could he possibly use to get that money? How could he possibly let it go now that it was in his hands? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. With a gentle smile, Uchiha Yoruichi led Anko to a patch of forest behind the camp, playfully teasing, "Oh right, I almost forgot. Instructor Orochimaru asked me to come back and check if your training has been delayed, Anko." What? Upon hearing that teacher Orochimaru wanted to test her training, Mitarashi Anko immediately showed an excited expression, so much so that the 200,000 yen she was short was instantly forgotten. How is that possible? I've been diligently training all this time. I've already mastered Sign Jashu and the Shadow Clone Jutsu. As Orochimaru's signature jutsu, which requires the summoning of a snake-type summoned beast to unleash its full potential, Sign Jashu is a C-rank jutsu, while the Shadow Clone Jutsu is a B-rank jutsu. It can be said to be a versatile attack and control jutsu. At that moment, Anko had a proud and arrogant demeanor. She was still intoxicated by the glory of being one of Orochimaru's disciples among the Sannin, and was not the Anko of later generations who had experienced everything. Seeing Anko's smug smile, Uchiha Yoru chuckled softly, raising her hand. In an instant, amidst Anko's startled cry, 9 dark blue snakes lunged forward, each opening their blood-red mouths and baring their fangs to attack. Potential for multiple snake-like handprints. It's undeniable that Anko could become a chunin, but she lacked even half the basic skill. Caught off guard by the sudden attack, she immediately jumped backward, simultaneously forming hand seals and instantly activating a similar jutsu. In an instant, 5 long snakes also shot out from Anko's arm. In terms of numbers, they were completely outnumbered, and similarly, in terms of size, they were also a notch below. In the blink of an eye, the two shadowless snake hands clashed. Uchiha Yoru unleashed his ninjutsu, with 5 of his heads directly coiling around Anko's 5-headed snake. The remaining 5, before Anko could react and let out a startled cry, wrapped themselves around her delicate body. Damn it, Uchiha Yoru, you ambushed me. If you have the guts, try again. At this moment, Anko, still resentful, glared at Uchiha Yoru, unaware that her small, delicate body was being tightly coiled by the long snake, causing her breasts to suddenly become noticeably larger. Uchiha Yoru's eyes widened in surprise, and he inwardly exclaimed, "Well, how big are they now?" It's no wonder that the original work described it that way. When Hinata was still immature, Anko had the title of the second Tsunade of Konoha. It's truly a case of misnaming someone, never miscalling a nickname. Uchiha Yoru's gaze naturally didn't escape Anko's eyes, following her gaze when she saw her own chest, which was prominently exposed from being squeezed. Anko's face immediately showed a look of shame and anger. Uchiha Yoru, where are you looking? Sorry, I didn't want this toy either, but there's nothing I can do about it. Who told you to be so nutritious? Looking at Anko, who was tied up, Uchiha Yoru laughed heartily as he spoke, while Anko snorted in dissatisfaction, but then shifted her gaze, and a complex expression appeared in her beautiful eyes as she looked at him. Does the Uchiha clan consider anyone who awakens the Sharingan to be a true genius? Why is it that you learned this jutsu later, yet you're more proficient than me? For those who awaken the Sharingan, it's a legendary genius. Not only in Konoha, but the entire shinobi world knows that once a ninja awakens a bloodline ability, they instantly become a genius. This is an undeniable fact. Seeing Anko's face full of responsibility, yet with a defiant look in her eyes, Uchiha Yoru immediately broke into a smile. Konoha's border behind, in the forest. Anko, you need to pay attention to this part of the jutsu. The shadow clones and snake hand seals form the tiger sun-snake sun-tiger combination, but everyone's physique is different. The rhythm of chakra manipulation also differs, and there are also differences in physical constitutions between men and women. At this moment, Uchiha Yoru opened his Sharingan and stared intently at Anko, one hand stroking Anko's delicate lower abdomen while explaining something. Ninjutsu isn't something you can activate just by knowing the hand seals. Otherwise, using a ninja's memory to record the opponent's hand seals would be like child's play. The corresponding hand seals in ninjutsu involve manipulating the chakra channels within the body. The hand seals are used to direct the flow of chakra through the channels, guiding it down to a suitable location, and then unleashing the ninjutsu. Each seal can activate a greater quantity of chakra in the body's meridians, resulting in different levels of ninjutsu, difficulty, and power. Each jutsu is different. Some only require the use of 3 chakra points, while others require 8, so the same hand seals can produce vastly different effects. Anko, you're a girl, so your physical condition is different from mine and the other teachers. Naturally, my learning speed is relatively faster. At this moment, Uchiha Yoru transformed into a teacher, explaining with a smiling face, and Anko also showed a look of sudden understanding. Men and women have different physical constitutions and different strengths of chakra channels. Even with the same jutsu, such as forming a hand seal, Uchiha Yoru can achieve 80% of its power by directing the chakra through these 3 chakra channels to a specific point, while Anko, being a woman, can only achieve 60% of its power. At this moment, Uchiha Yoru sighed slightly, realizing why Kakashi had the title of Copy Ninja in his previous life. In the original story, during Sasuke's battle with Deidara, the 3-Tama Sharingan, when trained to its limit, allowed him to see chakra. Similarly, the 3-Tama Sharingan can perceive the flow of chakra in a person's body, and with its extreme observational skills and abnormal dynamic vision. This is the key to the 3-Tama Sharingan's ability to copy ninjutsu. But even more profound ninjutsu techniques are beyond his capabilities. For example, his Chidori, and rank ninjutsu, requires the manipulation of even deeper levels of chakra within the body's meridians, something the Sharingan cannot perceive, and therefore cannot be replicated. Remember to call me senior sister, even if your strength is greater than mine. At this moment, Anko clearly felt a suffocating feeling in her. After all, it had only been 3 months, yet it was clear that the other party's understanding of ninjutsu had far surpassed hers. She even knew that the other party's strength had increased dramatically. Indeed, only after having her eyes open could she truly be considered an Uchiha. Seeing Anko's dissatisfied murdering expression, Uchiha Yoro immediately smiled and shook his head, saying, "Anko, have you thought about your future career path?" Seeing Anko's frowning expression, he knew that this girl was probably just blindly following in Orochimaru's footsteps, and he couldn't help but gently shake his head. Jiraiya and Orochimaru-sama are both ninjas specializing in ninjutsu, but they specialize in different areas. Tsunade-sama specializes in medical ninjutsu and close combat taijutsu. The fourth Hokage, Hiration, although a space ninjutsu user, is also speed-oriented. White Fang is also considered one of this type, but he specializes in close combat. After explaining a lot, it was clear that Uchiha Yoro was so bothered by the fact that she owed 200,000 yen that she was putting on a show of concern for Anko. For example, look at me, I found the right direction now. With the Sharingan, I can utilize my advantages, and I've decided to pursue nintaijutsu from now on. On this point, Uchiha Yoro wasn't lying. In fact, he narrowed his eyes and silently sighed to himself, realizing that there was still no surplus food at home. If he had sufficient finances, he would be an all-powerful individual, but currently, he could only choose the best and most economical option. The internal system for exchanging ninjutsu requires gold, and exchanging any kind of toy requires money, so to save money, he could only take a path that had deep development potential and could also save him money. He already possessed the fire release jutsu from his clan, and the lightning release jutsu, Chidori, was already an rank jutsu. He could create a defensive jutsu later. He didn't plan on exchanging anything else for jutsu, but he just needed to exchange for a jutsu that could improve his physical fitness, like the Raikage's lightning release taijutsu. Well, a jutsu that could be practiced until old age, so convenient, and it would save him money. While Uchiha Yoro was busy planning her future and saving money, Mitarashi Anko frowned slightly, her little head constantly wondering what path she wanted to take in the future. Suddenly lowering her head in thought, Mitarashi Anko only then sensed a large hand on her stomach. Her ears flushed instantly, but a flash of anger appeared on her face. Gritting her teeth, she coldly said, "Is it better to touch me or Kurenai? Everyone is different." His instinctive reaction was to blurt out what was on his mind. The moment Uchiha Yoro saw Anko's furious, bite-like gaze, he immediately displayed a righteous and indignant expression. "Anko, what kind of delusional thoughts are you having? I'm doing this to better sense the flow of chakra in your body's meridians. Your thinking is abnormal." Clearly taking advantage of her own comfort, and now even displaying an air of righteous indignation while commenting on her appearance, Anko was instantly enraged. Revealing her fangs and gritting her teeth as she said, "Fine. Then tell me, which path should I take in the future?" Ninjas who reach the later stages of training cannot develop comprehensively. Otherwise, they will be average in all aspects. Comprehensive development can even make them super geniuses. Even ordinary geniuses need to find their own primary direction of training and development. Seeing Anko gritting her teeth as she questioned him, Uchiha Yoro narrowed his eyes, recalling Anko from the original story. Mitarashi Anko graduated as a Genin at age 10, was promoted to Chunin at age 12, and later, at the beginning of the original story, became a Jonin from a special village. This also means that the once genius Anko later became an ordinary and unremarkable character. But Uchiha Yoro clearly saw Anko's talent. Otherwise, given Orochimaru's temperament, how could he have taken on such an ordinary disciple? It can be inferred that, after Orochimaru's betrayal and escape, Anko lacked guidance, and coupled with the repercussions and psychological blows she suffered, the once dazzling genius ultimately fell to become just a special Jonin. Anko, can you tell me why Master Orochimaru initially wanted to take you as his disciple? At this point, Uchiha Yoro casually asked again, and Anko was instantly startled. Following that, she frowned thoughtfully for a moment before softly saying, "Teacher Orochimaru once said that my chakra reserves are higher than my peers, and my talent in chakra control is also quite good. Even Orochimaru would praise someone for having such a large amount of chakra and decent control over it. That's definitely a sign of genius. Thinking of this, and then looking at Anko's innocent, youthful face, Uchiha Yoru couldn't help but reveal a slight smile. Although he was hiding something, he couldn't deny that Anko was indeed a warm-hearted girl. That's not the end of it. What are you still confused about? Teacher Orochimaru and Lord Jiraiya are both ninja of the ninjutsu type. What are you still confused about? Their main focus is ninjutsu, with taijutsu as a secondary skill. At this moment, Uchiha Yoru casually laughed and spoke, while Anko, seemingly unaware of what was happening inside her own home, suddenly understood after hearing it. Yoru, so which aspect of ninjutsu do you think I'll primarily use? At this moment, Anko seemed to have a similar train of thought, her excited chatter constantly appearing and disappearing before his eyes, especially the simple, fluctuating size of her breasts, which even made Uchiha Yoru's eyes dizzy and confused. Do you even need to ask? With Teacher Orochimaru around, you'll naturally follow Teacher Orochimaru's path. First, learn all the snake-type ninjutsu. At this moment, Uchiha Yoruichi said with a determined expression, Orochimaru doesn't have much time left before he betrays us and flees. If we don't take advantage of this opportunity to learn more ninjutsu now, we won't have another chance later. That's right, Anko, ninjutsu can't be too simplistic. You have fire attribute chakra, so the C-rank dragon fire technique is perfect. It has a large attack range and can complement your snake-type ninjutsu. At this moment, Uchiha Yoru put on a show of wanting what's best for her, and Mitarashi Anko, upon hearing this, couldn't help but show a hint of embarrassment. She chuckled and said, seeing as you care so much, you don't need to return the 200,000 yen. Upon hearing that he didn't need to pay, Uchiha Yoru immediately showed excitement. What he lacked most right now was money. Even if he ate everything he could find, he would still be short of cash, like a rich man. How Jay was right. What the hell is love for? Right now, all I want is to make money. Make money. Make money. No sooner had Song finished speaking than Mitarashi Anko frowned, lowering her head to look at her chest. She seemed to recall a previous incident, and the youthful, innocent charm on her face instantly flared up into anger. Uchiha Yoru, impossible. Pay up. 200,000 won per death is not a small amount. When the C-rank Fair Release Jutsu Dragon Fire technique is activated, chakra gathers in the chest. In that instant, the user's chest swells up as if they've taken a deep breath. This is especially true for female ninjas, making their chests even more prominent. At that moment, Mitarashi Anko's eyes widened in anger. How could the Uchiha clan produce such a person? Seeing Anko's reaction, Uchiha Yoru naturally couldn't deny this directly measurable and verifiable encirclement jutsu. Instead, he looked puzzled and said, Anko, what's wrong? Weren't you perfectly fine just now? Uchiha Yoru's inexplicable, captivating gaze instantly angered Anko, who snorted coldly. Inwardly, she pondered, could she have guessed wrong? After all, everyone knew that Uchiha Yoru was a money-obsessed, greedy devil, unlike Jiraiya, who was a lecherous old man. However, apologizing wasn't in her nature. Anko just snorted coldly, looking gloomy and unhappy, and said, Teacher Orochimaru hasn't taught me in a long time. Originally expecting a change of topic, Uchiha Yoru, who had been eagerly anticipating it, suddenly turned back to the previous subject, shaking his head and sighing, saying, Anko, Teacher Orochimaru has been secretly carrying out a secret village mission all along. There are some things you need to understand. Now he wanted to create a character, to create a plausible persona for Orochimaru. Orochimaru, on the front lines, was diligently carrying out a top-secret mission within the village, one that could slip through the cracks with uncanny stealth, and yet had another purpose. Thinking of this, Uchiha Yoru couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. When the time came, he wanted to drag all the border ninjas down with him. Orochimaru's betrayal and escape are understandable, but he couldn't have just struggled to escape Konoha like in the original story, earning a reputation as a terror that everyone wanted to kill. After all, he was Orochimaru's disciple. How could he stand by and watch his teacher suffer like this? As a disciple, he had to do something, at the very least, to make his teacher flee, which would at least cause controversy. Then he could strike a blow to the village and cause widespread panic. In short, the village is not comfortable, but the Uchiha clan's talent is exceptional. Thinking of this, Uchiha Yoru's face lit up with a smile. He was doing all this for his clan and his village. He absolutely wouldn't admit to acting out of selfish motives. Yes, absolutely not. Okay, Anko, first let me examine your body to see if you have any hidden injuries. Any hidden injuries could affect your future development. At this moment, Uchiha Yoru truly had no ulterior motives. On the contrary, he was being sincere. However, the moment he extended that demonic hand, Anko's eyes widened. You, Uchiha Yoru, what do you intend to do? Seeing Anko's suspicious gaze once again, Uchiha Yoru felt utterly humiliated. He truly had no ulterior motives. How old were you? How could you be so insensitive to others? He was seen disappearing to prove his innocence. Then he was seen extending his hand and instantly demonstrating healing ninjutsu. When Mitarashi Anko saw Uchiha Yoru's hands emitting a vibrant green chakra light, she immediately exclaimed in shock. A rank healing ninjutsu, palm sage technique. When did you learn this? It's no wonder she was terrified. Although medical ninjas aren't particularly strong fighters, they're definitely a rare resource, especially those who can master the rank medical jutsu, the healing palm technique. During the war, Konoha even had a rule that any medical ninja possessing the healing palm technique could be directly promoted to special jonin under special circumstances. Therefore, it can be seen how precious medical ninjas are, especially high-level medical ninjas, who are extremely rare throughout the entire shinobi world. Seeing Mitarashi Anko's terrified expression, he couldn't help but shrug and sigh, saying, Anko, there are some things you should keep secret. Don't tell anyone. The unique healing jutsu, embodying vibrant green chakra, appeared in both hands and gently covered Anko's body, which was brimming with youthful energy. This time, Anko didn't resist. In fact, she cooperated fully, lying comfortably on the soft grass. But the look of shock in her eyes was impossible to wipe away. At this moment, Mitarashi Anko's dark eyes stared intently at the other person, her mind constantly analyzing the situation. Awakened the Sharingan. He hadn't even said anything yet, and the other party had already directly become Orochimaru's teacher and student, and later even his disciple. All sorts of thoughts flashed through Anko's mind, and she became even more silently pensive. She naturally understood the Uchiha's situation most recently, and she knew even more that her teacher was now the object of flattery and favoritism from the major clans. Ultimately, the fourth Hokage died in battle, and now the border is in turmoil, but with her teacher Orochimaru guarding it. Neither the land of lightning nor the land of water dare to make any major moves. It wasn't just in the village. Even on the front lines, the calls for Orochimaru to become the fifth Hokage were quite loud. After all, a year ago, during the competition for the fourth Hokage position, Orochimaru was a strong contender. Ultimately, Namikaze Minato took the position, and to alleviate this embarrassing situation, Orochimaru was deployed to the border. This is also the reason why Orochimaru was not in the village during the Nine Tails Rebellion. This time, Orochimaru was practically unrivaled. The only remaining Sannin in Konoha qualified to compete for Hokage. But Jiraiya was a wanderer, not really living in the village. He might have been a powerful ninja, but he wasn't a qualified leader, and his popularity among the Sannin was the lowest. Tsunade was the most popular, but now that Tsunade is gone, only Orochimaru remains. After a brief analysis, Mitarashi Anko immediately smiled at Uchiha Yoru. Are you doing this for the sake of the clan? Seeing Anko's innocent smile, Uchiha Yoru smiled without saying anything, but he still gently nodded. Having arrived at the answer, Anko revealed a sincere and earnest smile. It was indeed as she had analyzed. The person representing the Night Clan was the Uchiha. No wonder her teacher wanted to take him as a disciple. Similarly, the healing ninjutsu he possessed was likely a hidden strength. At this point, Anko finally understood why the teacher would take the other person as a disciple. The Uchiha clan represented status, and with added talent, that was enough. Within the Konoha border area, in the dense forest, is an underground research facility. The unique ability is suitable. However, its form is extremely unstable and requires further research. At this moment, Uchiha Yoru, dressed entirely in a white cloak, calmly looked at the huge, ugly white snake inside the training container and shook his head, stating the test data. Especially this large, white-scaled snake, with its long, thick black hair at the back, looked utterly disgusting. Its form was constantly transforming within the nutrient solution, and its scales were actually made up of countless white snakes. At this moment, under the white light of the research lab, numerous large, neatly arranged glass containers stood upright, each depicting a huge, ferocious, and ugly white snake. Haha, thanks to you, Night Lord, otherwise the experimental data wouldn't have come out so quickly. With a hoarse, cackling laugh, Orochimaru took the report that Uchiha Yoru handed him, and looked at the large snakes in each breeding tank as if they were works of art, displaying a perverted smile. Meanwhile, Uchiha Yoru was silently assessing the surroundings. This place must be the research lab that Kakashi and Yamato explored during their teenage years in the anime, because the research project here was exactly the same as the one they encountered with the giant snake monster in the anime. Without knowing what he was looking at, Orochimaru let out a soft sigh and immediately broke into a smile. There's another failed body. Huh? Since it's so unstable, it might as well leave it here. Hearing Orochimaru muttering, Uchiha Yoru, standing beside him, showed a knowing smile and nodded, saying, "Understood, Teacher Orochimaru." Uchiha Yoru narrowed his eyes and smiled, forming hand seals, and immediately performed the Kuchioshi no Jutsu, pig, dog, rooster, monkey, void. As the white smoke dissipated, the powerful, large snakes appeared one after another. Instinctively, they crawled towards the cultivation jars, then smashed them with their heads. After a large amount of nutrient solution flowed out, the large, white-scaled snakes inside all fell into a deep sleep, and then a terrifying scene unfolded. Orochimaru, watching this scene, let out a hoarse, amused laugh, and then several large snakes opened their mouths and began to devour the test subjects. Haha, if it weren't for Yi-Jun, this kind of experiment would have wasted at least 2 more months. Hearing Orochimaru's encouragement, Uchiha Yoru smiled and said, "Teacher Orochimaru, this is all I should do." Following that, Orochimaru, with a hoarse, grinning expression, suddenly had a white snake emerge from his shoulder, slowly slithering towards him. It opened its mouth and slowly spat out a vial of reagent. Taking the syringe of test solution, Uchiha Yoruichi looked skeptical, while Orochimaru chuckled sinisterly, saying, "Haha, consider this a reward from a teacher. This is the serum extracted from the most venomous giant snake in Ryuchi Cave." Upon hearing this, Uchiha Yoru immediately broke into a smile. How could he not know about this thing? In the original story, Orochimaru was immune to countless toxins and could even transform his body into a terrifying giant white-scaled snake. In the early stages, he relied on this very thing. With this serum, I wouldn't dare say he's immune to all poisons in the shinobi world, but at least 98% or more of them won't affect him afterward. He directly stroked his arm, and a needle went in. Although he felt nothing, Uchiha Yoru was still overjoyed. "Thank you, Teacher Orochimaru." Indeed, Orochimaru is the most arrogant and unruly being, and following him was the right decision. "Teacher Orochimaru, is this research project about to end?" At this point, Uchiha Yoru voiced his doubts. After all, there was no one else inside this research base. He simply followed orders, inspecting the base daily, receiving detailed reports, and then submitting them. It must be said that Orochimaru truly lives up to his reputation as the ninja world's largest researcher and hideout. In just one border region, he's seen 3 bases, and this one is clearly dedicated to researching the giant white-scaled snake. This is especially true later on, when Orochimaru's transformation into a giant white snake, or even into the 8-headed serpent, was the initial stage of his jutsu. Looking at the research lab, Orochimaru showed a rare expression of emotion, thanks to the financial support of your Uchiha clan. It seems that because of this, some people in the village have begun to feel dissatisfied. Upon hearing these words, Uchiha Yoru was momentarily stunned, silently considering the situation. The plot was indeed beginning to shift. With the Uchiha clan rebelling and approaching Orochimaru, and the Hyuga clan's support, dissatisfaction with Orochimaru was beginning to grow within the village. Seemingly sensing Uchiha Yoru's anxiety, Orochimaru revealed a sinister smile, licking his lips and chuckling hoarsely. "But there's nothing to worry about. After all, the border turmoil hasn't subsided yet, and some people still don't want to leave me." At that moment, Uchiha Yoruichi instantly analyzed the situation in her mind. After the Ninetales rebellion, the borders of the Land of Fire had been somewhat unstable, hence Orochimaru's arrival. Once things stabilized, internal conflict would ensue. Once the village was stabilized, it was necessary to elect a fifth Hokage. After all, the third Hokage's initial declaration of allegiance was a slogan reflecting the current extraordinary period, and therefore, it was more of a temporary appointment. The fifth Hokage. Thinking about this, he knew his future even clearer. Danzo's ambition would never allow someone as powerful as Orochimaru to become the fifth Hokage, let alone the third. What about Sarutobi Hiruzen? He wasn't sure, but what about the Sarutobi clan? In the original story, the Sarutobi clan's strength was incredibly dazzling. They were practically an entire clan. Even the Hyuga clan wasn't that strong. With so many clan members, how could they stand idly by and watch their clan head, Sarutobi Hiruzen, once again fall from the pinnacle of power? Teacher Orochimaru, the elder, has sent word that the root leader seems very dissatisfied with you. In this kind of situation, it's clear that Orochimaru won't last long before he's betrayed and flees, so Uchiha Yura naturally has to prepare to ruthlessly pull out a scapegoat at the last moment. Seemingly noticing Uchiha Yoru's confusion, Orochimaru casually chuckled and said, "There are some things in the village that you naturally wouldn't know about unless you're familiar with them. Root is a department no less powerful than the Anbu, and it handles and executes some of the village's secret missions, such as these experiments." Uchiha Yoruichi's expression changed slightly, as if saying, "So that's how it is," but inwardly she muttered, "Danzo may not be a good person, but this teacher's actions are too obvious." So many experimental bases, this clearly shows they're using Danzo's support to serve their own purposes. However, those who don't look out for themselves will be punished by heaven and earth. He and Orochimaru up here can be considered the same kind of person. That's right, teacher. The elder said Root's title is because the legendary ninja going to the Shrine Maiden escaped from Root, and is now the director of an orphanage named Pharmacist Yakushi Nanu. Because she took the chestnuts from the fire, because both ends ate them clean, Uchiha Yoruichi solemnly recounted this information, showing not the slightest shame or humiliation for having injured an elder of the Uchiha clan. He is wholeheartedly dedicated to the future of the Uchiha clan, and the elders would surely understand and appreciate this sacrifice. To maximize profit, the pharmacist Yakushi Nanu, who now sells his intelligence to Orochimaru, clearly believes he can achieve the greatest return, and this information is useless to the Uchiha clan. Going to see a shamaness. Upon hearing this intelligence, Orochimaru was initially stunned, then a hoarse, mocking smile appeared on his face. "Haha, I didn't expect Elder Uchiha to know so much intelligence." It seems the Uchiha are quite familiar with Root. It's clear that Orochimaru misunderstood, thinking that Danzo's animosity towards the Uchiha clan was causing them to secretly keep an eye on Root, which is why they had so much intelligence. After all, there was the Root would release ninja attachment because of his top-ranking title. And now there's the Marriage Maiden. These are all Root's most mysterious secrets. And yet you, Elder Uchiha, know them all. Who would believe there's no foul play involved? Uchiha Yoru, instead of explaining this misunderstanding, was amused to see this and shook his head with a smile, saying, "Teacher Orochimaru, the clan head said he will do everything in his power to help you become Hokage." There was a lot of intelligence in those words, and Orochimaru's smile instantly broke out. It seemed the Uchiha clan wasn't as solid as steel after all. It appeared the elders had their own intelligence systems, and the Uchiha clan head was a different story, though this didn't concern him much. "Haha, Yoru, let's gather our things here. We don't need this place anymore. Let's go to the next base." Orochimaru turned around and let out a hoarse, chilling laugh, but Uchiha Yoru felt completely at ease. As long as you still had some value to him, you could do whatever you wanted with Orochimaru. Perhaps this was Orochimaru's magnanimity and personal charm. Konoha, Root. In the gloomy secret chamber, Danzo, his eyes covered with a blindfold, had a terrifyingly grim expression as he looked down at the two men kneeling on one knee. He said in a deep voice, "Haven't you found anything yet?" With an emotionless voice, the two masked Root ninjas kneeling on one knee said in a low, emotionless tone, "We apologize, Lord Danzo. Root has investigated 3 times from top to bottom, and we have still found no trace of any spy infiltration." Upon hearing this answer, Danzo immediately became enraged, slamming his hand on the table in anger and shouting, "Not infiltrated? How did the information about the wood release ninjas get leaked? Tell me, not only was Konoha's deepest secret base infiltrated and its intelligence leaked, but they haven't even found any trace of it. Useless. A bunch of useless fools. At this moment, Danzo was truly furious. He knew that even Sarutobi Hiruzen hadn't revealed the information about the wood release ninja armor, and now Orochimaru knew about it. And as soon as they opened their mouths, they demanded documents and some blood and flesh samples for research, even saying they wanted to restart the wood release plan. When Danzo saw the message Orochimaru sent, he was instantly furious. His anger wasn't about the valuable information or the leaked intelligence, but rather about knowing that Root had problems and yet he hadn't been able to find out what was wrong. That was the real reason for his outrage. Useless. Danzo angrily shouted, and the two Root ninjas bowed their heads in silence, not daring to show the slightest dissatisfaction. In fact, they themselves felt a little afraid. The infiltration of Root was an incredibly terrifying event. Hiruzen, is that you? At this moment, Danzo narrowed his eyes in anger. The only person he could think of was his old friend, the third Hokage. After all, Konoha now possesses such power and influence, and only this talented third Hokage, who has been in office for many years, could so stealthily place someone in his route without anyone noticing, and still prevent him from investigating even a single detail. Lord Danzo, the Root ninja all possess the Zetsu's Seal of Calamity, making it almost impossible for them to reveal any intelligence. Hearing one of his subordinates speak with such confidence, Danzo immediately let out a cold laugh. Almost impossible. There has never been a perfect ninjutsu. If it's a sealing technique, it can naturally be broken, and similarly, another seal can be placed on it. At this point, Danzo was certain that it was Sarutobi Hiruzen's doing. After all, only the third Hokage had the means to seal the Seed of Calamity Zetsu, and then, after learning about his Root intelligence, this sealing jutsu. Thinking of this, Danzo felt as if he were being toyed with like Saru, yet he had smugly assumed the other party didn't know. His face instantly turned green with anger, and he gritted his teeth, saying, Hiruzen, good, for all these years you've treated me like Saru, playing with me. He could imagine that Root's entire scheme was under Sarutobi Hiruzen's watchful eye, and all his self-satisfaction stemming from his secret plots was nothing more than a fool's plaything. At this moment, the third Hokage, weary, smacked his lips, a pipe dangling from his mouth, and slowly exhaled a thick puff of smoke before frowning as he looked at the intelligence coming from the border. Fortunately, the three battles that cast a shadow over it haven't yet caused the major powers to come out. A few smaller countries are provoking them. Hopefully, peace will come soon. At this moment, Sarutobi Hiruzen suddenly wanted to take on the lead role alone. To say the pressure wasn't great would be a lie. The village was home to the extremely dangerous Uchiha clan, and one must remember that the Uchiha were the most prestigious clan in the shinobi world. A small border region with a few smaller nations considered instigating another war against a major power, aiming to wear down the larger power. Meanwhile, spies from various nations continuously investigated Konoha's true strength. Konoha has just suffered the loss of its youngest and shortest-serving fourth Hokage, as well as a large group of elite ninja. It truly is a time of chaos. Thinking of this, Sarutobi Hiruzen couldn't help but look at the portraits of the successive Hokages on the wall. When he saw the last one, that golden, youthful, sun-kissed smile, he couldn't help but sigh, Minato, you've really left me a mess. With such a severe shortage of elite ninja, it's safe to say that many departments are lacking personnel. Now, only the major clans and Sarutobi's clan can fill the gaps. Recently, he's also noticed that the gradually stabilizing border seems to have made some members of his clan reluctant to seize power. Internal strife and external threats, that's the current state of Konoha. Lord Hokage, this is all the information on Uchiha Yoru. A dark shadow flashed past, clearly an Anba ninja, and a stack of intelligence reports appeared directly behind the Hokage's desk, causing Sarutobi Hiruzen to show a serious expression. In these turbulent times, Orochimaru actually took on an Uchiha disciple. What exactly is going on? Orochimaru, are you using the Uchiha clan's power just for the Hokage position? Or is this a conspiracy by the Uchiha clan? Sarutobi Hiruzen muttered to himself as he flipped through Uchiha Yoru's file. He found that it clearly detailed everything from his origins to his time at the Ninja Academy, even including who he got along with, who he argued with, and who he fought with. It was incredibly detailed. Upon reviewing this entire document, Sarutobi Hiruzen's eyebrows furrowed even more tightly, and the pipe he was holding in his mouth made an increasingly loud smacking sound. Did the Ninetales awaken its Sharingan that night? Was it out of fear or anger? Was it because of fear, or because of anger and a desire to broaden its horizons as an orphan, witnessing Konoha's immense losses? As for the Uchiha clan, in his capacity as a second-generation disciple, he understood it perfectly well, so he muttered to himself. And finally Sarutobi Hiruzen narrowed his eyes as he looked at an unremarkable piece of information. All that could be seen was a blank piece of paper clearly stating that the deceased elite Jonin Yuhi Shinku had a daughter named Yuhi Kurenai, along with their ambiguous relationship. Greedy for money. Lustful. Host, Uchiha Yoru Wantamo. Chakra level, Shunin Leaf 3. Chakra attributes. Fire LV3, Lightning Leaf 4, Swordsmanship Tactics, LV4. Healing Ninjutsu Leaf 4, Gold Coins, 12.35 million. Inside the Konoha encampment, Uchiha Yoruichi wore a sorrowful expression, while Shisui, facing her, displayed a look of shame, as if saying that he wanted to help but was unable to do even the slightest thing. Shisui, now that Professor Orochimaru's research has reached its most crucial point, he needs some precious research materials. You know that the strongest currency in the outside world right now is gold. Now, Uchiha Yoruichi's face showed a sorrowful expression, and Shisui, upon hearing this, nodded solemnly and said, "Yes, big brother, rest assured, I will contact the clan. This is the funding for this time." After saying that, he pushed a heavy suitcase forward. Upon seeing the gold in his hand, Uchiha Yoru not only showed no joy, but instead pretended to be deeply troubled and sighed. Seeing this scene, Shisui couldn't help but show a look of doubt. "Brother, if Lord Orochimaru has a large financial deficit, I will definitely report to the clan head and ask for more funds. Now he's devoured half of the company's finances, roughly over 10 million yen, which, when converted into cash, amounts to at least 50 million yen, equivalent to half of Sarutobi Suma. In the original story, Kakuzu's bounty on his head was 30 million, and Sarutobi Suma's was 35 million. Some say this is the price for an elite Jonin, but everyone forgets their identities. Being an ordinary ninja comes at a price, but if he sacrifices his strength and then gains an additional status, his value will increase exponentially." Roku and Sarutobi Sumo were both members of the 12 Guardian Ninjas of the Land of Fire, a status similar to that of a presidential bodyguard. Roku later became the head monk of the Temple of Fire, and Sarutobi Asuma's status as the son of the third Hokage explains everything. It was almost as if he was the president's son. You should know that the third Hokage's son's life was worth 35 million. How could any other elite Jonin possibly compare? Furthermore, the bounty order, just like in the previous life, meant that some people needed to assassinate extremely high-ranking individuals. Regardless of the purpose, at the very least, after this bounty was placed, they wouldn't necessarily have a lifetime of luxury, but at the very least, their business would be free for 3 years. Therefore, Sarutobi Asuma's bounty of 35 million yen is absolutely a huge sum of money. Now the Uchiha clan is stirring up trouble because Orochimaru provided 100 million yen in financial support, which is absolutely correct in his calculations. It's just that he took half of the commission. Ah, Shisui. At this moment, Uchiha Yoru showed a hesitant expression, instantly causing Shisui to look puzzled and worried. He couldn't help but say in a low voice, "Brother Yoru, have you encountered any difficulties? The clan has given orders that if anything happens, the elite Uchiha on the front lines will prioritize carrying out your mission, Brother Yoru." It's undeniable that by attracting Orochimaru, the future fifth Hokage, the Uchiha clan has gained considerable strength. In the original story, they lacked direction, but this time, under Uchiha Yoru's leadership, they have a clear path forward. Orochimaru is short on money. Fine, I'll throw money at him, all for the sake of gaining his trust, the trust of a future Hokage. Seeing Shisui's serious expression, Uchiha Yoruichi, with a hesitant look, sighed and said, "Shisui, Teacher Orochimaru has sacrificed countless lives for the village, and painstakingly researched the wood-release jutsu. Now, judging from Teacher Orochimaru's words, it seems Danzo is using this to threaten him." What? Shisui's expression immediately changed to one of shock upon hearing this, But he quickly suppressed his astonishment and said in a low voice, "What's going on?" It's impossible not to mention Shisui's thoughts. The third Hokage, Denzo, and the other high-ranking officials, all disciples of the second Hokage, especially Denzo. Who was the Hokage's right-hand man? How could they possibly threaten Orochimaru? It's important to know that Lord Orochimaru isn't just the future fifth Hokage. He's also a disciple of the third Hokage. Seeing Shisui's terrified expression, Uchiha Yoru shook his head and sighed, saying, "These matters are unclear." Judging from Orochimaru-sensei's anger, it seems Danzo doesn't want Orochimaru-sensei to become Hokage. Where is the third Hokage? Doesn't the Hokage know Lord Danzo either? Suddenly, Uchiha Shisui was startled at this point. He didn't say the rest of the sentence, but seeing Uchiha Yoru's smile, he immediately seemed to understand something. How could the third Hokage not know? After all, he was the Hokage. But why didn't he stop it? He even seemed unwilling to let Orochimaru become Hokage. All these doubts were deeply buried in Uchiha Shisui's heart, his mind buzzing with thoughts, as if in a vivid image. He saw Orochimaru as someone who treated him with the dignity of Hokage, naturally filled with respect and blind trust. But suddenly he seemed to realize that Danzo still possessed a faint layer of the aura of the soon-to-be abdicated third Hokage. This is precisely why, before the relinquishing of the Hokage's aura, Orochimaru, who held the Hokage's prestige, bestowed upon Shisui the same trust and respect. Conversely, a soon-to-be retired Hokage naturally receives less of this aura. Why would even the third Hokage sit idly by and do nothing? After all, Lord Orochimaru was the Hokage's disciple. Shisui, Danzo can only prolong the time until Teacher Orochimaru succeeds as Hokage, but he absolutely won't be able to stop him for much longer. Moreover, Teacher Orochimaru has already fully resumed his research and experimentation with wood release for the village. Once another wood release ninja emerges, with this immense achievement, no one will be able to stop Teacher Orochimaru from becoming the fifth Hokage. Uchiha Yoruichi said with a resolute expression. He didn't say the third Hokage was bad, nor did he say Danzo was particularly unruly. He only said that Teacher Orochimaru was preparing to use wood release ninja techniques for the sake of his unstoppable achievements to become the fifth Hokage. Ultimately, no one would have imagined that Orochimaru, a ninja of this caliber, would betray and flee. A Sannin, a disciple of the third Hokage, a former strong contender for the fourth Hokage, and a future fifth Hokage with all sorts of accolades, let alone Shisui. Even other nations at that time wouldn't have believed it. If you were to tell them now that Orochimaru, one of the Konoha Sannin, wants to betray them and flee, they would absolutely scoff in disdain. Rest assured, elder brother, this time I will personally report the importance of this matter to the clan leader, and I will definitely help Lord Orochimaru succeed. At this moment, Shisui was thinking that human body experiments were now feasible. After all, the second Hokage had done it, and the third Hokage had done it during his time in power as well. All of this was for the sake of the village. Lord Orochimaru was also ordered to do it, naturally for the sake of the village as well. And look, wasn't it successful? Seeing Shisui's assurance, Uchiha Yoru also showed a resolute expression, nodding solemnly and saying, "Shisui, I'm counting on you." Now that Danzo has almost completely lost all of the teacher's financial research, this is our only chance, Uchiha. Regardless of whether this experiment succeeds or not, as long as Teacher Orochimaru becomes the fifth Hokage, the Uchiha will once again gain the Hokage's trust and will definitely return to the center of power in Konoha. This resolute statement, filled with optimism for the future, instantly ignited Shisui's fighting spirit. He said in a deep voice, "Brother, rest assured, the Uchiha clan may lack many things, but we certainly don't lack money." Well done, truly audacious, worthy of being Konoha's #1 noble family. At this moment, Uchiha Yoru, who had initially felt a little ashamed, immediately muttered to himself upon hearing these words, "I still have to work harder." Look, he himself said that the #1 wealthy family in Konoha lacks nothing except money. You said he's also working hard for the Uchiha clan to save them, so what's wrong with spending some of his own money? Isn't that perfectly normal? At the Konoha border, Orochimaru, as the frontline commander in charge of the lighting and water country defenses, was often somewhat unpredictable due to his research activities. But he also occasionally appeared in the main camp to oversee the handling of intelligence gathering on the front lines and some military deployments. Uchiha Yoru, clearly Orochimaru's trusted deputy, readily assisted with intelligence scrolls while also assigning tasks and doing whatever was within her capabilities. Similar to a Hokage's assistant, the Lightning Kingdom and the Fire Kingdom don't directly border each other. Instead, there are two smaller countries sandwiched between them, creating a buffer zone between major powers, to put it bluntly, a battlefield for those major powers. At the same time, it's adjacent to the Land of Iron, followed by a coastal region and numerous island nations. The Hidden Mist Village ninjas from the Land of Water also frequently pass through. So this defensive line is set to directly guard against the two great nations of the Land of Lightning and the Land of Water, which shows just how much prestige Orochimaru has. Teacher Orochimaru, recently the Land of Lightning and the Land of Water have mainly relied on spies, constantly trying to find out our true strength. Conversely, some smaller nations, unwilling to accept defeat, have repeatedly impersonated ninjas from the Hidden Clad Village and the Hidden Mist Village, engaging in slander and provocation, attempting to instigate war between the great nations. Looking at the consistently accurate intelligence report, Uchiha Yoru chuckled and shook his head, offering his analysis. Orochimaru, upon hearing it, scoffed contemptuously, placing hope in wars between great nations only gives smaller nations a chance to rise after heavy losses. How ridiculous! They don't realize that great nations simply won't allow smaller nations to continuously grow stronger. Orochimaru had seen this kind of tactic all too many times. Small countries already have limited space to breathe, and with the restrictions of larger nations, dissatisfaction is inevitable. If a small country wants to provoke a larger nation into war, then the larger nation won't have time to anticipate their actions, allowing them to seize the opportunity to develop further. Little did they know, after the appearance of a nation capable of threatening and provoking the five great nations, the five great nations had already reached a certain level of understanding. The success of the Wu Kingdom was unreplicable, and the five great nations would not allow another Wu Kingdom to appear in the shinobi world. Yoru, I'll trouble you these 2 days to sort out the troublesome matters on the front lines. In half a month, the Lightning Country will have a new commander-in-chief in charge. Upon hearing this, Uchiha Yoruichi was immediately stunned, while Orochimaru, with a hoarse, carefree smile, said, Yoru, politics is a very troublesome thing, just like now. Someone is coming to pick the peaches. At this moment, Orochimaru showed not the slightest hint of anger at being betrayed. There was a slight disappointment in his golden pupils, as if he had realized something. Some people in the village still didn't want him to become the fifth Hokage, even his teacher, or rather, the Sarutobi clan. Teacher Orochimaru, our Land of Lightning has paid such a heavy price, and just as we've managed to stabilize the situation, it's now someone else's credit. This is so unfair. At this moment, Uchiha Yoru revealed an angry and resentful expression. Since becoming Orochimaru's disciple, and given Orochimaru's willingness to delegate authority when he demonstrated his potential in political affairs, he naturally became fully aware of some confidential matters on the front lines. Orochimaru, as the frontline commander, led the Konoha ninjas in defending against two great nations. The result was a shakeup of the situation that had just begun to recover, especially on the Lightning Country side, which was moving towards stability. I was about to claim the credit immediately, but now someone else has come to take it. Haha, Yoru, you're still too young. Orochimaru's hoarse voice and cheerful smile showed no sign of trouble, but when he went to receive the scroll handed over by the Lightning Country's commander, Uchiha Yoru's pupils immediately contracted upon seeing the person in charge. Sarutobi Shinosuke, the eldest son of the third Hokage, now the Anbu chief. Upon seeing this name, Uchiha Yoru's mind immediately recalled the Hokage information from his previous life. The third Hokage's eldest son and daughter-in-law, who are to lead Jonin directly under the Anbu, and are hailed as the third Hokage's most capable assistants, are Sarutobi Konohamaru's parents. Although the name wasn't explicitly stated, Uchiha Yoru knew the name of the third Hokage's eldest son. Under these circumstances, he immediately narrowed his eyes. This was the Sarutobi clan's biggest windfall. Sarutobi Hiruzen is the Hokage, and his eldest son and daughter-in-law are the so-called trusted assistants in the Anbu. Aren't they the Anbu's chief and vice chief? Now that his eldest son has come out of the Anbu, it's clear he wants to step into the spotlight and directly go to the front lines to reap the rewards. Thinking of this, Uchiha Yoru looked at Orochimaru's casual, hoarse smile and felt a surge of sarcasm. Is this what distinction is? After all, it's human nature. When comparing one's own child to one's disciple, everyone knows which is more important. However, for him, this might be some pretty good information. Uchiha Yoro immediately showed a thoughtful expression. It was very valuable and very worthwhile. Konoha. Inside the Hokage's office building, Sarutobi Hiruzen was puffing on his pipe, while in front of him stood the Anbo minister, who had removed his Anbo mask, his eldest son, Sarutobi Shinosuke. Shinosuke, from now on you are a Konoha Jonin. The defense of the Lightning Country's border region is on the verge of stability, so remember to stay calm and don't act impulsively. Just maintain the current situation. At this point, Sarutobi Hiruzen was no longer simply the third Hokage. He was also a sincere and honest father educating his own son. Upon hearing this, Sarutobi Shinosuke frowned in confusion and said, "Father, why don't you send me to the Water Country's front lines? The Lightning Country's territory is now stable, but there aren't many achievements I can gain there." Upon hearing this, Sarutobi Hiruzen slowly shook his head, took a deep drag on his cigarette, exhaled a cloud of white smoke, and then said in a low voice, "Orochimaru and Danzo are too close. Root's current behavior has almost abandoned the will of fire. I truly hope Orochimaru can find his way back from his misguided path." Sarutobi Shinosuke frowned in confusion upon hearing this, while Sarutobi Hiruzen shook his head and sighed, saying, "You're going to the Lightning Country's front lines is not only the wish of all the high-ranking officials, but also the wish of me, as the third Hokage. Now that Orochimaru seems to be heading down the wrong path, the higher echelons don't want to see him go astray. And it's not just the Sarutobi clan's opinion. Just take things one step at a time, and later, you'll be the Jonin squad leader." After exhaling a thick cloud of smoke, the third Hokage's eyes, hidden within the swirling mist, revealed a complex expression in his pupils. Orochimaru's ideology is too dangerous, especially since he has seen ideas that are completely opposite to the will of fire. Now he can only use this opportunity to strike down his most prized disciple. Even at a higher level of understanding, he naturally knew clearly that it wasn't just about not wanting the increasingly powerful Orochimaru to ascend to the Hokage position. Many people had even begun secretly contacting Jiraiya, but Jiraiya clearly didn't want to get involved and simply avoided meeting anyone. Then there's the Sarutobi clan, who certainly don't want their clan leader to step down from his throne of power. They're even happier to see Orochimaru's authority undermined, hoping that during this time, the Sarutobi clan can seize even more benefits and power. For example, the Jonin class leader. Once Sarutobi Shinosuke becomes the Jonin class leader, the Sarutobi clan's power will reach its peak. The Hokage will be Sarutobi, the Jonin class leader will also be Sarutobi, and the Anbu chief will also be a Sarutobi clan member. Just one more Sarutobi to come along in the future Hokage. News spread that Sarutobi Shinosuke was about to take over the responsibility of defending the land of lightning on the Konoha front, and many people expressed their dissatisfaction. After all, these were the merits they earned by following Lord Orochimaru, and now someone else is coming to steal them. If one person can come, then two can come. After all, how could someone who parachuted in not have trusted allies? This is not only an attempt to steal Orochimaru's credit, but also to divide their achievements. How could anyone be satisfied with that? Lord Hizashi, inside the wooden house on the front line, when Uchiha Yoro respectfully approached the Hyuga clan leader to request an audience, the clan head, who usually maintained a polite demeanor, also showed his respect by bowing and saying, "Yokun, you are too kind." Uchiha Yoro himself was merely a Chunin, while the other person was an elite Jonin. Therefore, he needed to address the other party as Sir, a matter of hierarchy, especially within large clans. Since Uchiha Yoro was Orochimaru's disciple, this status meant Hyuga Hizashi couldn't afford to be disrespectful. This was also an honor bestowed upon him by his status, so the two exchanged polite pleasantries. "Lord Hizashi, Instructor Orochimaru sent me to inquire about the Hyuga clan's deployment list, as the front line is about to be readjusted again. Originally a single front line, the current situation requires the emergence of two commanders-in-chief, one responsible for the defense of the Thunder Kingdom, and the other for the Water Kingdom. This necessitates the mobilization of frontline combat personnel, especially those from powerful families. Yesterday, the Uchiha clan visited a representative of a certain identity, but it was Orochimaru. In everyone's eyes, even if the village was only able to prolong Orochimaru's rise to power due to some political reasons, they would at most use this time to gain some advantages for themselves. However, they absolutely never imagined that such a ninja would betray them and flee. Therefore, when faced with Uchiha Yoru's question, Hyuga Hizashi respectfully nodded and said, "Lord, you can just call me Hizashi. There's no need to be so formal." As the most rigid member of the Hyuga clan, they still placed great importance on this matter of etiquette. Understanding Uchiha Yoru's words, he didn't take them seriously, but instead smiled and nodded, saying, "Captain Hizashi, I'm sorry to trouble you." Adding another captain, a title given with the respect due to Chunin towards Jonin, seemed too unfamiliar to Hyuga Hizashi. The title captain actually helped to bridge the gap, and upon hearing it, Hyuga Hizashi forced a friendly smile. In the ninja world, while strength is paramount, the true essence of this world remains until you reach the level of a supreme cage-class individual who can look down on everyone else. The Hyuga clan has already made good arrangements. This is the Hyuga clan's list. Please take a look. Having received news early that the Lightning Country was sending a commanding officer to parachute in and reap the rewards, the major clans naturally made preparations. Looking at the scroll that was delivered, Uchiha Yoru revealed a smile. Upon opening it and taking a look, Uchiha Yoru's smile widened even more. Indeed, everyone in Konoha now believed that Orochimaru's ascension to the position of 5th Hokage was only a matter of time. This time, the Hyuga clan had also placed their baits on Orochimaru, their teacher. The Lightning Country's distribution was almost entirely comprised of members who had broken away from the Hyuga clan. And while the Water Country also primarily consisted of members who had broken away from the Hyuga clan, the fact that these individuals were listed as Hyuga clan leaders already spoke volumes. More importantly, several members of the main family clan were also arriving from behind. The Hyuga clan's sincerity was evident, and Uchiha Yoru immediately smiled and nodded, saying, "Thank you very much, Captain Hizashi." "Dequan, you're being too polite." The formalities were quite sufficient. They had already inquired about the major families, because this list served two purposes. Firstly, to see who they could rely on, and secondly, it was a privilege of the wealthy families. If you're just an ordinary ninja, sorry, you only need to wait for orders. You'll go wherever you're told. But it's different for powerful families. They inquire early, and if they see anything unreasonable, they can communicate with each other beforehand, right? Privileges, from time immemorial, will never disappear. At this moment, Uchiha Yoru narrowed his eyes, seemingly understanding why the Hyuga clan would be tricked in the future. He realized it was because they had taken the wrong path in politics, and was the Uchiha still in power? Since the founding of Konoha, there had been no political position for the Uchiha clan. "Captain Hizashi, there's something I'm not sure if I should say or not." After a moment of hesitation, Uchiha Yoru showed a troubled expression, while Hyuga Hizashi, although a member of the clan, was still considered half a clan head. His subtle frown was barely noticeable, and he naturally wondered if Lord Orochimaru was trying to probe something. "Please tell us more details, Lordya, and the Hyuga clan will certainly provide full support if anything happens." Hyuga Hizashi, with his impeccable skills, said that the Uchiha and Hyuga clans were incompatible. What nonsense! The two clans fundamentally had no conflict of interest. The Hyuga clan specialized in close combat ninja, while the Uchiha, despite their reputation as all-around ninjas, primarily used ninjutsu and shuriken. The two noble clans have never had any conflict of interest. The so-called power struggle is simply that the Uchiha still want to be at the center of Konoha's power. That's all. Seeing Hyuga Hizashi's impeccable charm, Uchiha Yoru not only showed no dissatisfaction, but instead revealed a smile. Captain Hizashi must also know the situation in the Amba village. Anbu. This single word instantly put Hyuga Hizashi on alert, and he immediately guessed that this must be Lord Orochimaru's probing, not the Uchiha. Uchiha Yoru then smiled slightly in relief and continued, "Captain Hizashi, you must know the problems Orochimaru, the successor to the 5th Hokage, will face after his appointment. Just like the situation after the 4th Hokage's succession. Since the founding of the ninja village, there hasn't been a precedent of a successor succeeding the previous one without their death. The 3rd and 4th Hokage of Konoha were the exception, thus creating a very clear conflict of power. The 3rd Hokage was still Hokage, even though he wanted to abdicate. But what did that position really matter? Although he was considered a high-ranking elder, there had to be a distinction between them. Therefore, the initial negotiations in Konoha resulted in retaining the third Hokage's Anbu privileges. In the anime Night of the Nine Tails, someone loudly exclaimed that he was the third Anbu, clearly implying there was also a fourth Anbu. Therefore, the third Hokage's Anbu became an independent organization similar to the root organization, and the newly appointed fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze, wanted to re-establish his own Anbu, initially using the original Anbu as assistants. As soon as this issue came to mind, a ripple of unease immediately appeared on Hyuga Hizashi's face. Once Orochimaru inherited the position of fifth Hokage, the first problem he would face would be establishing the fifth Anbu. Yukun, what do you mean? At this moment, Hyuga Hizashi had clearly guessed something, but he remained relatively composed, while Uchiha Yoru, after hearing this, showed a gentle smile and nodded. Not bad, fifth Hokage Orochimaru thinks the Anbu need manpower. An olive branch, used to win people's hearts early on and deliver tangible benefits, makes the Anbu equivalent to the ancient emperor's royal guard and the Hokage's trusted confidants. What do you need? Hyuga Hizashi was very cautious. Although the temptation was quite great, it was clear that this temptation could not be casually placed before him. Seeing the other party's interested expression, Uchiha Yoru immediately smiled and nodded, saying, "Finances. Gold is best, so that both the Hyuga and Uchiha clans will have two qualified members. The Anbu are all selected from ordinary people because that way they won't be tainted by family interests. But don't underestimate these two ranks. You should know that the members sent out by the major families are definitely elite jonin. With this level of strength, becoming an Anbu squad leader is practically a sure thing. This is real power." Upon hearing this, Hyuga Hizashi immediately let out a gasp, while Uchiha Yoru also smiled. He had gathered some funds from his senior teacher, all for his teacher's research. As a disciple, isn't it perfectly normal for me to follow my teacher around as an assistant to solve problems? Surely, even if Professor Orochimaru found out later, he wouldn't blame him. After all, no one would dare to squander money on something they didn't have. If it were anyone else, he really wouldn't dare, but time and again, it was Orochimaru, who was wholeheartedly devoted to research, who dared to delegate authority. More importantly, he knew that he should seize the opportunity to fleece as many students as possible now. Otherwise, if his teacher betrayed him and fled, he would have no chance at all. Haha, Yijun, you're solving an urgent problem for your teacher, aren't you? At this moment, inside the wooden house, Orochimaru looked at Uchiha Yoru, who was respectfully standing before him. This person was merely a disciple he had taken in through political transactions and gambling, yet he never imagined that his help would be so great. He truly felt like he had a powerful assistant. Naturally, this assistant wasn't there for research purposes. After all, although Uchiha Yoru possessed special Jonin-level medical ninjutsu, he was still far from perfect. This assistant seems to be very helpful, especially financially. Ever since he took this disciple on, he's hardly had any financial headaches, and the other party has even started using the Uchiha clan name to recruit people for him. Teacher Orochimaru, this is all their own choice. At this moment, Uchiha Yoru's eyes were filled with unwavering determination, as if to say that he firmly believed and hoped that his teacher would become the fifth Hokage, and that the others, including the great clans, also thought the same. As for this disciple himself, going to the camp to meet with representatives of the great clans, how could Orochimaru not know? In his eyes, he was merely an Uchiha who could help him achieve his goals faster than the fifth Hokage. Or rather, to show their sincerity, the Uchiha clan should also acknowledge that they have made a significant contribution. Look at how many connections I've helped you build. Orochimaru immediately let out his unique horse laugh. Haha, I've discovered that having the Night Lord and the Uchiha clan around has made things much easier. The first time Orochimaru mentioned the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Yoru showed an excited expression, nodding solemnly and saying, "Teacher Orochimaru, rest assured. The Uchiha clan will always stand steadfastly behind you, teacher." In this regard, the Inuzuka and Aburame clans expressed their goodwill towards the teacher, offering 50 million yen in financial aid, while the Hyuga clan offered 200 million yen. But hoped that teacher Orochimaru would consider Anbu candidates after he ascends to the position of Hokage. It's clear that he was the one who made the promise, But now he's talking about the Hyuga clan's idea. He's truly a two-faced old man. Upon hearing this, Orochimaru immediately narrowed his wide, golden eyes, revealing a wicked smile. After a long pause, he let out a hoarse laugh and said, "Haha, Anbu, it's not impossible." Orochimaru's heart was filled with a carefree smile. Konoha was originally built upon the support of the great clans, and the Hokages Anbu were an exception. They were the Hokage's forces, the elite of the common people. The major clans are essentially one type of Hokage, while the Uchiha are just a different kind. Therefore, for now, the major clans are merely showing goodwill towards the future Hokage. As for the investment, it's simply for the future. At this time, Orochimaru, having failed in the competition for the 4th Hokage position, was no longer as obsessed with becoming Hokage as before. But it seemed everyone was pushing for him to take the position. Ultimately, the 3rd Hokage was getting old, and his initial retirement was due to the immense sacrifices he made in the 3 major battles, after which he took full responsibility. Therefore, countless people are now investing in the future of the Hokage. Even Orochimaru probably never imagined that he would eventually become a rogue ninja. After all, these human experiments have been around since the 2nd Hokage. There's a precedent for this. Otherwise, how could Ito Tensei, a type of ninjutsu, have been developed? Furthermore, Orochimaru established so many secret research bases within Konoha, and although he also had some personal bases, at most it could only be considered using his position for personal gain. Don't you see how the Sarutobi clan, known as the 3000 ninja clans, came into existence? Furthermore, Orochimaru's research on the human body was also mentioned in the original story. Orochimaru joined Root, and it was Root leader Danzo who devised the plan and provided support to him from the beginning. Do you think the Hokage didn't know about such a huge commotion? It can only be said that Danzo also learned the technique in a deceptive way, secretly abusing his power to secretly allow Orochimaru to research would release. This all has precedence. Teacher. Orochimaru chuckled casually. He was no longer as interested in politics as he used to be, so he waved his hand and said, "Rest assured, what the Hyuga should have, the Uchiha will have to." This is a painting of a person who is supposedly one of the Hokage's contenders, isn't it? After all, how could someone who doesn't understand politics become the Hokage's chosen successor? Seeing this, Uchiha Yoru immediately nodded vigorously in excitement. Teacher Orochimaru, rest assured, the Uchiha clan will definitely do everything in its power. Loyalty. After all, he doesn't represent the Uchiha clan. It's just that some people consider him to be the current representative of the Uchiha clan. Haha, Nightfall, I see you not only have good talent in medical ninjutsu, but your swordsmanship is also quite good. I was originally planning to give you this chakra weapon when you were promoted to Jonin, but I think I don't need it. Orochimaru, with his wicked, sinister grin, spoke, then raised his head, and a terrifying image appeared. His throat gurgled and moved, as if something was about to be vomited out. A relatively dark-colored snake slowly emerged from his mouth, and then the snake opened its mouth again and vomited outwards. Upon seeing the chakra-emitting weapon, Uchiha Yoru couldn't help but show a look of astonishment. It was this divine weapon. Haha, I heard that the Gross World Sword is made from the hardest material in this world, almost indistinguishable from metal chakra. I wonder if Night Lord is satisfied. With his long tongue retracted from his mouth, Orochimaru, with a sinister and evil grin, grabbed the long, black, slender sword and swung it, instantly wiping away all the slime from the blade. Seeing the divine weapon being presented, Uchiha Yoru was filled with excitement. For a ninja, this could be considered a priceless treasure. Thank you, Teacher Orochimaru. After respectfully receiving the hilt of the original Uchiha Sasuke cross-cutting sword, Uchiha Yoru was filled with gratitude towards Orochimaru and also towards his snake-like uncle, who had always known how to invest wisely. Orochimaru chuckled hoarsely, a hint of amusement in his golden eyes. It wasn't that he was being generous, but rather that the other party was worth his investment. From Kakuzu's perspective, considering the other party was his disciple, and moreover, the other party had awakened the Sharingan, becoming a Jonin in the future wouldn't be much of a problem. Not to mention that he had also mentored him, so giving him a divine weapon he didn't need was perfectly reasonable. From Kakuzu's perspective, this disciple himself brings him considerable benefits, and he can also make the Uchiha clan trust and favor him even more, which will lead to even more research funding. killing two birds with one stone. Similarly, it benefits both parties. Satisfied, Uchiha Yoru tucked the Gross World Sword into his back, revealing an excited smile. While Orochimaru chuckled and said, "The border has been relatively stable lately. Remember to diligently carry out your training plan." Yes, teacher Orochimaru. It must be said that Orochimaru is absolutely the most responsible teacher, completely basing his training plan on Kakuzu's scientific principles, achieving the most near-perfect training results while ensuring the body doesn't become overloaded, rather than acting recklessly out of desperation. The original source material hints that the Daikin sword is not just one type of sword, but a particularly special one. After Sarutobi Shinosuke took over as the commander-in-chief of the Lightning Country's defense region, things had calmed down for just 2 months before turmoil began to rise again. March. 5 months have passed since the Nine-Tailed Fox Rebellion last October. The Land of Fire is located in a border region of the Land of Water. Yes, Big Brother. A small waterfall stood before Uchiha Shisui, his face filled with solemnity. Seeing this, Uchiha Yoru couldn't help but feel impressed that the Land of Fire truly deserved its reputation as the most prosperous region in the shinobi world. Its resources were so abundant, it seemed like they were free, especially the towering trees that resembled ancient forests and the waterfalls that could be seen everywhere. It's also unclear whether the Uchiha clan has a close connection with waterfalls. Uchiha Madara was stabbed in the Final Valley. Uchiha Sasuke was attacked twice in front of waterfalls in the Final Valley. And Uchiha Itachi even had suicidal thoughts in front of waterfalls during his childhood. It seems that only one person has ever committed suicide near a waterfall. Just thinking about this strangely close connection, Uchiha Yoru immediately gave Shisui a peculiar look, as if the only Uchiha who could die in the waterfall was you, Shisui. With your body flicker technique. At this moment, Shisui had no idea what Knight was thinking, but even if he did know, he wouldn't have the time to think about such things. Yes, Big Brother news has come from the village that they are preparing to bring Lord Orochimaru back. And the defense of the Water Country region will be handled separately by the Uchiha and Hyuga clans. At this moment, Shisui, with a serious expression, revealed something that the village had been secretly preparing for. Uchiha Yoru was indeed startled upon hearing it. He wasn't faking it, after all. The old scoundrel Kishimoto hadn't explained the details of these events in detail. From the beginning of the Nine-Tails Rebellion storyline, the plot focuses on the Kakashi Endo arc and the Uchiha clan extermination arc, but there is no mention of Orochimaru. Yes, boss? Seeing Uchiha Yoru's stunned expression, Shisui couldn't help but frown and call out, immediately revealing a look of bewilderment after waking up from his sleep. Shisui, why would the village, which was perfectly fine, want to bring back Orochimaru as a teacher? This was truly a dream of his, and while he was still analyzing the situation, Uchiha Shisui shook his head with a grim expression and sighed, "Brother, several people in the village have gone astray with the will of fire and fallen into darkness. That's quite something." Upon hearing these words, Uchiha Yoru was stunned. Looking at Shisui, he seemed to say, "Is that what you should be saying? Aren't you supposed to be the most loyal embodiment of the will of fire?" Shisui's expression was complex and weak as he let out a sigh. Although he was only 14 years old this year, he now resembled an adult. "Brother, there are people in the village who don't want Lord Orochimaru to have made such great contributions, so they want to transfer him to Lord Orochimaru's side. And the Water Country wants to replace Lord Orochimaru with members of our Uchiha and Hyuga clans. His intentions are despicable." Uchiha Shisui's voice, filled with rage, was evident in the latter half of his sentence. He gritted his teeth and said, "These are some people in the shadows provoking the relationship between the Uchiha and Hyuga clans and Lord Orochimaru." It's very clear that Shisui has now deviated from the original story. After being transported to another world, in his eyes, Orochimaru is the one who carries the darkness on his back and moves forward for the sake of Konoha's will of fire. The perfect inheritor of the will of fire. But a few people, because they came together with some ulterior motives that cannot be revealed to anyone, want to start targeting the future Hokage in his heart. This is unforgivable. Seeing Shisui in this state, Uchiha Yoru was stunned. He hadn't expected such a drastic change, and couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, "Shisui, what exactly happened? Can you explain it to me?" He was truly dreaming right now. What exactly was Shisui thinking? What had happened? Was this world developing too fast and he couldn't keep up? Or had Shisui changed too quickly? Uchiha Shisui, his face filled with indignation, said, "Brother, do you know? Some Sarutobi clan ninjas in the village keep instigating, asking why Lord Orochimaru isn't here. If Lord Orochimaru were here, the fourth Hokage's death wouldn't have happened at all. Furthermore, some people secretly rumored that Lord Orochimaru had long since had a close collaboration with the Uchiha. And some even used some kind of evil conspiracy to falsely accuse Lord Orochimaru, claiming that the Nine-Tails baseless rumors were a result of collaboration between the Uchiha and Lord Orochimaru, with the ultimate goal of becoming Hokage. That's quite something," Uchiha Yoru thought, his eyes widening in disbelief. Was this Shisui, who kept mentioning Lord Orochimaru, really the same Shisui with the body flicker technique he knew? "No, Shisui, don't get agitated yet. There are some things you can't just say carelessly. How could the Sarutobi clan act like this? The third Hokage absolutely wouldn't sit idly by." At this moment, Uchiha Yoru's minds seemed to be lagging behind, and he couldn't help but glance at Shisui, saying, "Let's not get agitated yet. Let's talk things through properly. Let me clear my head a bit." Shisui clearly mentioned the will of fire, and it truly pained him. His expression turned grim as he said, "Brother, this is what I saw with my own eyes when I returned to the village to escort supplies. I also have information from the village. Although the third Hokage has stopped these rumors from spreading, the third Hokage actually wants to bring Orochimaru back to the village. One must know that the Lightning Country, a region that had just been stabilized, was on the verge of securing the credit, only for Sarutobi Shinosuke to snatch it away. Now the Water Country is also on the verge of stabilization, and Orochimaru, who was on the verge of securing the credit, is about to lose it, further provoked by some despicable tactic. Making the Uchiha and Hyuga clans the ones who would reap the rewards. Isn't this a clear provocation against the two clans and Orochimaru? In Shisui's eyes, this action was truly heartbreaking and devastating, especially considering the Uchiha clan's immense efforts. A single order from someone else could render all their sacrifices meaningless. If, in the original story, the third Hokage's words were seen as the Hokage's actions expressing goodwill, then now, with the Hokage's constant provocations against the Uchiha, Shisui naturally felt a surge of dissatisfaction. At this moment, Uchiha Yoru finally understood the meaning. There were people in the village who didn't want Orochimaru to return with this immense achievement. Otherwise, with his current merit in pacifying the border, if those with ulterior motives were to call upon him, they would simply recommend the fifth Hokage. After clearly considering all of this, Uchiha Yoru, seeing Shisui's angry and indignant expression, immediately feigned a wry smile and shook his head, saying, "Shisui, don't think nonsense. The third Hokage merely inherited the second Hokage's will to guard against us Uchiha, but he absolutely inherited the will of fire. He would never do such a thing." One sentence. You're starting to doubt the third Hokage. But I've repeatedly chosen to go against the established path. Under what circumstances would one be able to dissuade someone who remains steadfastly opposed to the third Hokage? He was currently in a difficult situation. He absolutely had to create a sense of unwavering belief in the village in front of Shisui, a belief in the existence of the third Hokage, so that Shisui would gradually discover certain things, and the other party would come to convince him instead of him doing the convincing. At this moment, Shisui looked at Uchiha Yoru's unwavering belief and couldn't help but hesitate to speak, subsequently suppressing his dissatisfaction and suspicion towards the Sarutobi clan. The release that comes out is initially mild, but if it remains suppressed inside the stomach, it will ferment and finally explode.